Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports.
When it comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
TexAgs Live.
I feel like I should be listening to the theme song from the Jeffersons. You know, we're moving on up.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
He is a guy that has gotten better and better and better. He's just got that dog in him.
This one's special. The 12th man this past week was unbelievable.
And this is a real program. It's not fake. This is a real place. And if you want to be really good at football, this is a really good place to be.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
Buchanan.
Nuño.
Disappointed because it happened, how it happened, who it happened against, and everything involved in this robbery. What a disappointing, frustrating, predictable, because I found it predictable. I'm watching the game, OB, as my daughter's playing. So I'm watching on my phone, right? And I'm just getting angry. And in fact, in the first half, where everything looked great, I turned to my wife, Elizabeth, and I said, I don't think we're going to win this game. Because it was such an anomaly, right? That's not how they win. Yes, on an occasional day, they can hit a bunch of threes, right? But I didn't find it like a winning recipe. Now, what I didn't expect was the total collapse, total offensive collapse in the second half. 25 points, which I think was 1 point more than Texas scored in the first half.
Yeah, but look at the last 16 minutes.
Yep. But again, everything that happened, the frustrating offensive woes that we have seen when this team loses is typically because an offensive 6-minute stretch, 8-minute stretch, 4-minute stretch that causes them games.
Okay, first of all, to me, it's like watching the Titanic sink. You know, you're like, hey, man, this looked unsinkable. And then all of a sudden it was. And I think, look, I've seen it on the other way with A&M coming back from.
Yeah.
But this was somehow worse. You had a 22-point lead with less than 17 minutes to go. And then you started, I almost think it came too easy for them. And they kind of forget who they are. And it starts, some people won't like this, it starts with Henry Coleman picking up a technical foul, complaining, all right, Henry, what do you think you're going to do when you go to the official? That's what, I didn't see it, but that's what I understand happened. Do you think he's going to say, oh, yeah, you're right, here, let's call a foul now and put you at the line? So you get a technical foul with a big lead, and basically you give Texas 2 points. No big deal, except that they won by 1. You get a technical foul later.
6 men on the court.
Now, to me, again, I was trying to see what it looked like. It looked like the official gave the ball to put in play while A&M was making a.
Yep.
Maybe A&M should have been quicker getting the guy off the court, but to me, that's a bad break. But how many layups did A&M miss?
How many free throws did they miss?
Well, right. And
how many did Texas make?
And one of the things that I don't get is that, look, Texas in that second half especially, and despite their defense, Wade Taylor almost saved you a couple of times. But Texas was trying to take Wade Taylor out of the offense. It appeared to me from way up where we were sitting that A&M just didn't adjust their defense as Trey Johnson got white hot. And how is this guy, like less than a minute to go, I think it was, maybe a little more than that, he hits a three, and there's nobody within shouting distance of it. How does this guy get that wide open? So, you just start looking at A&M missing free throws, missing layups, turning the ball over, 7 turnovers, just doing everything to implode. They lost that game, maybe even more than Texas won it. not taking a timeout at the end of, I'm not talking about on the long three that almost went, but when Wade rushed it down and got blocked, why don't you just taking a timeout there and setting something up? So I think it was a total failure from start to finish, and it's inexcusable, really, because you add into it who it was.
Who, right?
Now, I'm not saying the players did it on purpose. They wanted to win too.
No.
But understand what you were doing that got you that big lead. And so many things that they did that seemed like out of control. And quite frankly, had they just run the shot clock down, right, they probably would have won the game.
Look, if this game would have been a loss to Arkansas, it
would have hurt.
Absolutely. Just like Ole Miss hurt after A&M beat them on the last second shot. But I think it's all the drama over the last 12 months. Not even 12 months, last 8 months of everything.
Over the last 100 years.
100 years. But the recency of their entrance into the SEC, their success in football, Schlossgate, everything that has happened, it's just adding to this, which is what makes college athletics great, right? There's a beauty to it. But watching that game happen like that to them, when you are the team that typically wins these one-possession games at the end.
Well, what it does is, and don't get me wrong on this because I don't buy that narrative, but there's this one narrative that comes from over there that A&M is somehow inferior. And what that does is it adds to that narrative that they're going to talk about maybe certain, media will talk about and push and things like that. And you just have to take some crap that you never should have had to take. I heard, quite frankly, after the game, Buzz actually says in the second half we did some things that we weren't accountable for. I'm like, isn't that why coaches them say, okay, timeout. Look, guys, this is what we're doing. We got to stop it.
Right.
But you know what? In during the media timeouts, he probably did say that.
Yeah.
And try to get his guys together. But it's as if they went they were an opposite team of who they typically are when in the clutch. We've talked about what they did against Ole Miss, what they did against Oklahoma, and in the second half against Texas when they beat them by 20. And it was like everything they did was like stepping on a rake and getting hit in the head.
Yeah, look, that game, to me, here's why it's not surprising, OB, is because that's who I think it's surprising the decisions they made at the end. Yes, that part to me was surprising. But offensively, this is kind of what I expect. You're going to hit some threes, and then you're going to force some threes that you shouldn't, right? They didn't shoot that many threes, right? How many threes did they shoot in the game? Look that up for me.
Who are we talking about?
A&M.
A&M, how many did they shoot? 23. They made, what, 10?
Yeah. But they made
8 in the first half.
8 in the first half, yeah.
Yeah, but when Wade hit one, I think it's from the right wing.
Late.
With about 6 minutes to go, maybe 6 minutes and change, and they got a 14-point lead. And I remember thinking, okay.
That should be it.
You got a 14-point lead with 6 minutes to go. I think Wade probably just saved you.
Yeah.
And, you get is that when they got the technical foul?
I think it was right after
and
that.
So there's two free throws and the ball.
Yep. Look, and defensively, typically, there was a lot of things that were typical A&M and some things that weren't. And one of those was not adjusting and not making it harder for the best scorer. I mean, he had 24 in the second half.
It seems to me the best way to stop a guy like that is just not let him get the ball in the first place.
Yeah. That's what Texas was trying to do with Wade Taylor.
Right. And what you do, but A&M's going to play this one way, and they're going to want you to shoot a three.
Mm-hmm.
And Trey Johnson was saying, thank you.
Texas outscored A&M 20-5 in the last 6:21.
Yeah. That's after I think A&M took the 14-point lead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 20-5.
Yeah, 20-5.
And some of the shots A&M took were very, let's face it, they just weren't smart shots. In fact, one of them, they actually scored. Zurich Phelps comes in, and he's trying to get a layup, and he puts up a shot that has no chance. It's just an air ball.
Yeah.
But Henry Coleman came over and was able to get the offensive rebound, put in. How many offensive rebounds did they get? But then Texas comes right down and gets an open three.
Right.
An open three. And I think the biggest blessing that they have is that they play tomorrow night. The quicker you get back on the court, the better.
100%. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but did you have a problem with Rodney Terry postgame, the celebration with the guys walking by?
A little bit.
I didn't like it.
Not to the point to, just, what a classless guy. But this is the guy that, and Texas fans, this is true. This is the guy that made a big deal over UCF players doing the horns down. Mm-hmm. Oh, how classless. Let me teach you how to be classy and all that. And then you can't even wait till you finish with the handshake line.
And the tongue out. What was that?
I mean, and I've always thought up until that moment, I always thought Rodney Terry was a really classy guy. Yeah. Now, maybe he just had
he got caught up in the moment.
Maybe he did. All right. Yeah. So give him that. But
I didn't like it. I thought I wouldn't want my coach to do it. But whatever. Like, we don't need to spend a lot of time on it. I just didn't like it. And more than anything, because, again, who it was, how it happened. Look, that was a collapse. It was an
epic collapse.
Yeah.
You know what? I was thinking about what are the biggest disappointments I've had covering A&M. And, of course, the first thing that always comes to mind is the game at the Rose Bowl against UCLA, 34-point lead, and you blew it.
Yep.
And I was also thinking about, the god-awful play selection when you had a chance to beat Alabama 2 years in a row and you're on the 2-yard line and Jimbo comes up with this play that made absolutely no sense and never will.
Yeah.
And then the next thing I could come up with was this.
Yeah, this is
I don't know. I mean, that's probably no worse than second.
It is in the conversation for sure. And again, I think a lot of it is because who A&M, I think, is right now in basketball and who Texas is.
You're a better basketball team. And they didn't even have one of their starters. And you're up 22 with 16 minutes to go on the road and 16 minutes to change.
And when you were up 14 with 6 minutes left, I think?
14?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, this whole SEC championship thing, you win this game, you can start thinking about, hey, you know what, this is realistic. I don't want to say one game torpedoes that, but it sure does make it seem a lot less realistic.
What this game does is it makes some of the commentary that we had last week after the Ole Miss game that we caught some flack for, it just magnifies it, all right? Because I believe I said, you've probably echoed the thoughts, the offensive model to me is not sustainable to win big, right? Now, that's not to say that I don't think this team in the right matchup situation can go very deep in the NCAA tournament. What I'm saying is when you have these kind of droughts, right, and they are consistent, and when you are consistently not hitting your free throws, and when you are, what are they, the fourth worst shooting team in Power 4 teams? Is that what?
Something like that.
All right, they're 16th in three-point percentage in the SEC, I think 16th in free throw percentage, and maybe 15th or 16th in field goal percentage. Like, that's not but that being said, that's why these one-possession games are so amazing to watch because they had 6 of 7 coming into that one.
Well, it's funny because at halftime when they're up 18, of course I'm in Austin. There's a lot of my old friends in the media are there, and they're coming up to me and saying, "Man, these guys are great. I thought they weren't good shooters and all this." I'm like, they're streaky, and I said, "Don't trust that," because I said, and I remember saying this: an 18-point lead, you can't be comfortable with it. Because they can go from red hot to ice cold in a matter of minutes, and I did, I didn't know what was going to happen. I was hoping it wouldn't, but that's exactly what happened.
Hey, I just want to make a quick commentary about this, real quick. We're going to spend a segment on it, but you saw Billy posted on the boards about Jay Bateman and potentially an interest with Virginia Tech. That is something that we do need to address. I know those who have a membership to TexAgs.com got that information last night when Billy posted it. If true, OB, sounds like the best situation for all parties involved.
For all parties involved, yeah. I don't ever want to judge somebody on 1 year, so I'll give Jay Bateman the benefit of the doubt. But from what I saw for this year, it was like going to 31 flavors and ordering vanilla. And I'm talking about the defensive performance.
Sure.
You were supposed to have this great defensive line, and it was early, but the second half of the season, for the most part, it just disappeared. Mike Elko talked in the first game about how there were misfits on the running game. Yep. That never got fixed. That never got coached into whoever was blowing it. And it just seems, and then we saw another meltdown in the bowl game.
Yep.
So I think he's from the Virginia area.
He's from the area.
He's from Virginia. So I think
we'll
that
discuss
might be
it.
the best case scenario for both parties.
And in the next segment, we've got to talk about the commentating that happened on the game on Saturday. We'll briefly touch on that. I know there are several. I was at a dinner party last night, and folks that typically don't get riled up were a little riled up.
Yeah, I understand it.
And so
getting riled up, let me throw this in. Since you mentioned you were at dinner, there's a couple things I want to mention, but first I'm going to get to this one. So I was with my niece.
Yeah.
I did not know this until last night. She's a big soccer fan.
She's smart.
You know what she told me? She told me.
Oh, here we go.
She told me that Real Madrid dropped 50 bands on Mbappe, and they still suck. But she likes Bellingham.
Jude Bellingham. He's awesome.
And she said that she's a big Barcelona fan, and they're great. Her name, Addison Vega.
Okay.
She's a freshman.
Just so
architecture
if you're
student.
watching, we're having a terrible year, and we're in first place of La Liga. We're literally in first place, and we're having a terrible year.
And the other thing I want to throw out there is, hey, today, this is really important. Today, big friend of TexAg, great TexAgger, Guayo Plomo.
Guayo, ¿qué pasó?
He's starting his, I think, sixth week of chemotherapy treatments today. Hey, Guayo,
we love you, Guayo.
We talked to him yesterday, texted with him. He's talked about how much he listens to the show and it gets him through his chemotherapy and all this. Everybody that is involved in TexAgs and really Texas A&M, he's the guy with the
TexAgs coffee.
TexAgs coffee.
That's Guayo right there.
We're with you, and we love you, and we're praying for you.
One of the greatest guys I know. He's
a wonderful guy.
And by the way, he's a huge Real Madrid fan.
And you know what else? You know what else? He has that. We can start buying our coffee from El Salvador. I don't know if you're paying attention to other things going on in the world. So hey, he's gonna provide that El Salvadorian coffee.
TexAgs.com/coffee. Get yourself some TexAgs coffee. Should we give one away? I can give one away a week.
Absolutely.
Hey, what number?
I wish I knew what number Guayo wore when he was
playing here,
soccer team. But let's just say, I don't know.
Let's go.
What's Mbappe's number?
Number 9?
Number 9.
I don't think any of our listeners can. But regardless, the 9th, text her to 979-693-1150. Write the word TexAgs coffee. Carter's going to hook you up. He'll let you know, or he'll let us know who that is. All right. We are 18 minutes, 16 seconds into the show, and people are probably tuning in thinking they're watching Great Day Houston, but they're not watching Great Day Houston, right?
No, they're watching TexAgs Live.
Yeah. And we're presented by?
David Gardner's Jewelers.
We are where?
We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio.
This particular hour has a name.
The Go Hour.
Yeah. And then if you were to do...
Creations.
Yeah, the Go Hour presented by the Warehouse of CC Creations. If you were to do a little cutout of this section...
Cool Zone. The Cool Zone.
But it's got another name. The Holistic Planning.
The Holistic Planning Cool Zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that movie with Patrick Swayze that he's why am I forgetting the name?
Roadhouse.
Roadhouse, yes. You remind me of Rip today.
You know what? I'm kind of embarrassed to say, I've gotten to where I go work out in the morning and I had my clothes ready.
Yeah.
And I forgot to put them in the truck, and I didn't realize it until.
You look good.
Fortunately, I had a pair of sweats.
I saw the guns popping. Did you do
There's no guns.
Today?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
But anyway, so this is why I'm just wanted to. I forgot my clothes.
You look good. Holistic Planning Cool Zone, where you can get investment, tax, estates, and also, OB,
you can invest in pro sports like Barcelona.
Investinprosports.com. All right, if you want to be a part of the conversation this morning, you can do that multiple ways. You can call us up or you can text us. 979-693-1150 is our number. That's the Boss Firearms hotline and, of course, our hotline number. Nick, you spent some time on the boards yesterday. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are y'all?
I'm good, man. What's on your mind this morning?
Well, the biggest takeaway from the game in Luke, again, he's so good with keeping, stats and trends and whatnot. He pointed out to us back here that A&M has been called for 5 technical fouls throughout the season, and the opponents have been called for a whopping 0. So that just seems like it's a problem that's still kind of festering on the surface. So I don't know how that gets cleaned up, what needs to change about that, but that's a little strange to me.
We need other teams to put 6 men on the court.
Or maybe A&M not to talk so much, because I think Wade got one time. Was that against Texas here?
Yeah, you turned up your pack. Yeah, Obi was mentioning not talking as much, that Wade got a tech, and I do believe you were right. I think it was in the Texas game. But bottom line, I went back this morning and kind of listened to the commentary again and watched some of the plays. I don't know what happened with Henry. I don't know what he said. I don't know if did Buzz it. Yeah, so I think
Buzz
Henry
was asked about some of the technical fouls,
Yeah.
and he did the smart thing. And
Here, give it to me. I got you.
is that it?
Yep, you're on now.
Sorry about it. Buzz was asked post-game about some of the technical fouls, and quite frankly, he did the smart thing and just deferred.
Yep. I wish I would have seen more Manny Obaseki.
Yeah, he was asked about that.
He didn't
really,
want to talk
he didn't
about
want
that,
to talk about it. Manny had, 13 points, 12 points in the first half.
Yeah.
Played 6 minutes in the second half. He scored 1 point. He got to the free throw line. Unfortunately, you know how that goes for the Aggies. He had three free throws, and he made one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like Manny's game, especially when he's hot. You got to ride that hot hand, right? And if it feels like it's multiple games, keep him on the floor.
And that's just odd, because I'm sure I'd be surprised if Manny did something that made Buzz mad, because just the Manny's personality.
Look, I can try to ask him about it later on today. He'll be on the show. We're not going to get much from that because, whatever it is, it's a coach's decision for whatever reason. Right. So it is what it is. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Carter Adams making his debut on the program.
Sounds like Carter.
He does sound like Carter. Carter, good morning, buddy.
How's it going, guys?
Tell the people where you're from, your story. I want to hear all about it.
My name is Carter Adams. I'm from Southlake, Texas, class of 2025 at A&M, and I'm excited to be here. It's going to be a good time.
How'd you get to A&M? Like, what? You have family from A&M? What made you pick A&M?
I'm a first generation Aggie. I come from a big football high school, obviously Southlake Carroll, and I just loved football and wanted to study a great sports program here, and we got it all here, so figured I'd test it out.
Well, in the couple of weeks you've been here, you've done a great job, but this is your debut on the show. I know you got some news for us.
Absolutely. So I want to get a little positive here. We're gonna talk about Aggie tennis. Both A&M tennis teams taking victories, with number 2 Texas A&M women's claiming their 3rd straight sweep and their 58th consecutive win at home versus TCU at the Mitchell Tennis Center on Saturday. A notable victory for doubles, Mary Stoyana and Mia Kupres claiming their first ranked win on court 1 over number 12, Jade Otway and Isabella Pasquale, 6-2. The Aggies will host San Diego on Friday, January 31st at the Mitchell Tennis Center. So the women's team certainly riding a hot hand.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Silver linings here.
Yeah, we Steve Denton came up yesterday in conversation, as did Mark Weaver. 2 really good dudes.
Good guys.
Yeah.
Good tennis coaches, because he said the men won too.
Yeah, both very good. And oh, by the way, if you didn't know, you know who won the national championship in tennis last year?
For women?
Yeah.
I would believe that would be your Texas A&M Aggies. Didn't they beat Georgia?
They did. Georgia, who won the SEC championship, lost to Texas A&M. Anyway, Carter, anything else you want to give us?
Hot team, A&M tennis men's, number 13, defeat number 23 Harvard, 4-3 on the road. Freshman standout Theo Papamalamis secured the Aggies.
Say that again. That's amazing pronunciation.
Theo Papamalamis.
I like that.
He
sounds Greek.
Split the first 2 sets against Harvard's Danny Milovsky, but he dominated the 3rd set with a flawless 6-0 performance, sending the Aggies to the ITA National Indoor Championships for the 2nd consecutive year. So once again, tennis is looking pretty good.
So what was the name again? The last name again? Papadopoulos?
Papamalamis.
Do you remember George
Papadopoulos? It sounds like an animal.
Do you remember George Papadopoulos?
The hippopotamus and the Papalopoulos.
You don't know what I said. George Papadopoulos.
No.
I know you know that name. I know you do. Remember the show Webster?
Okay.
The dad on Webster who used to play Alex Karras. Yeah, there you go.
I didn't know that was. I never really watched the show. I was thinking of what's the little runt that's
Small Wonder?
No, the little run on one of the political guys with the George Stephanopoulos.
Oh,
isn't he about 5'3"?
I would love for you to
that guy.
I would love for you and George to go to 1775 and have a conversation.
I would too.
Yeah, and don't tell me what you would discuss, but just tell me about the food selections you would have.
Look, you can have completely different views on a lot of things, but everyone can agree that Texas barbecue is amazing.
Yes.
And yet some places take it to even higher levels. And one of those places, 1775. So take your friends. I'm planning to go there this week.
I know. A buddy of ours.
Take your friends, take your enemies, take your wife, take everybody. I don't know which one she falls into, but take everybody. Go to 1775, break bread, build bridges.
Build bridges. And can you remind the folks why it's called 1775?
Yeah, because the U.S. military was established in 1775 so we could gain independence, from those Brits,
from those people.
And here we are. Because without winning that independence, we would be eating fish and chips instead of Texas barbecue.
This is true. I do like fish though, and I like chips. Anyway,
which would you rather eat?
Barbecue.
All
day.
All day, every day.
And night. I'd have it. You know what I do? Okay, this is a long commercial. I sometimes have my leftovers. I put it in my eggs in the morning.
There you
That's
go.
how
I've
I
done
roll.
that. I've done that.
I'll put it in a soup. I'll put it in a salad.
I think you can get that there too.
Yeah, you can. By the way, 1775txbbq.com. Check it. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Okay, so full disclosure, I don't typically pay attention to what the broadcasters say during games. Okay, couple things. Especially this weekend, I wasn't. I went back and listened to Tom Hart's commentary, because he's a weekly guest, and over the last couple years, I have gotten negative feedback from many, not just a few, many, about him on the show, okay? But I don't usually pay attention to what sometimes I don't even know who's broadcasting, okay? That's full disclosure. I listen to Monaco a lot because I like getting the A&M perspective. Sometimes I'll be at Kyle Field with you, and I'll put my AirPod on, and I'll listen to the radio broadcast because I like hearing what Andrew has to say, okay? And he'll be on the show, by the way, a little bit later, 9:35. I love Andrew Monaco. I didn't hear it live. I'm watching the game, watching Isla, and I'm getting text messages from folks that typically don't complain. There's a group that complains quite a bit about everything, about the shirt that I'm wearing, the coffee cup that I'm drinking from, what coach did this, what coach looks like. Okay, there's that group. And then there's like another group that typically doesn't complain. For instance, the dinner I went to last night, my buddies who were texting me during the game, hey, did you get a load of what Tom was saying? And some of the things that were reported back, I was like, God, I didn't hear it, like hear it. I kind of heard it, but didn't hear it. I went back and I listened. I didn't like it, okay? There's a lot of things I did not like. I also know that there was more to it than the 140 characters you sometimes get on a Twitter thing. Tom's going to come on the show. I know a lot of people don't want to hear from Tom, and they've expressed that on several threads where they came and attacked me, and they came and attacked Billy, they came and attacked Tom, personal insults, disgusting commentary. But there are many, 99% of this community, 99.5% are amazing people. OB, you and I know that, like, when I first got to TexAgs, I'll never forget. This is a compliment, because last night you came up in conversation at dinner, how nice of a human being you are.
Oh, gosh, they don't know me.
And I brought this up on a couple different occasions, but I was on the job for maybe 10 days, and you're like, hey, we're going to go to dinner in Hoover with iDoc Mike.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. Like, why are we going to dinner with him? And iDoc has become a dear friend to you and me, right?
Yeah.
I have met in the almost 4 years of doing this job some people that I think are just like I have such respect and admiration for. So this job does afford us that, okay? Part of this job for you, for me, for Billy, for anybody in the media is to catch strays. Sometimes because of what your team did, sometimes because we're nincompoops. We make mistakes. Sometimes or sometimes we just don't jive with people. All that is part of what we do.
Yes.
And Tom knows it for what he does, because I had a conversation with him yesterday, and he has gotten it when he goes to cover a Tennessee-Texas game from a Tennessee perspective, from all these other perspectives, all right? So I recognize everything, and I also understand the source of frustration, because we're watching our top basketball team beat Texas. This is before the run where people are making this commentary. And I know the two real sore sound bites were the Rodney Terry said everybody on A&M wanted to be on the team. And while that may or may not be true, because it was taken from Rodney Terry's perspective, I don't know how that adds to the conversation. The prom girl, the ugly girl, the prom, whatever the comment was, and we have clips that we'll play. I didn't like that either. I also understand what he was trying to say, so I'm going to allow him the opportunity. And I say allow, he's not going on trial. We're going to talk about it, because he knows people are upset, and people are mad at me for putting him on the show. So we're going to discuss it, and then we're going to move on. Because the real frustration for me is not the commentary of some dude. I understand people are like, this is TexAgs. Why would you put somebody? Well, I like to get different perspectives. Billy likes to get different perspectives. Sometimes we like the national perspective. We like people that are that we get to see when we go on the road and cover our teams. And that is, it's just what we do. But we're going to talk about it. If people want to be mean, do what you got to do, guys. But I'm going to discuss it. I'm not going to attack him. I still think one of my best and worst moments at TexAgs was the SEC Mike battle, and I felt terrible afterwards, even though I still felt correct. I felt right. I still, to this day, feel like I was right on that. For those who don't know,
all you got to do is look at what's going on at Arkansas.
Just Google it.
Okay, look, if you want to say that A&M is the ugly girl at the prom, still got the date, right? And he's trying to say, well, that the way they play is not aesthetically pleasing. I think a lot of us could may not like the analogy, but can understand it and accept it, right? Yeah. And if you want to say, look, A&M's not shooting the ball well, or they're streaky, whatever, and criticize play, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. Here's what I got a problem with, and why I think A&M fans and TexAggers are justified in their outrage is when, if Rodney Terry said, hey, let me back up a little bit. Tom Hart, you're supposed to be representing, or not
both
representing, calling the being somewhat even-handed. But you also got to understand, if you're going to tell a story of what a coach told you, you got to understand that there's going to be some in the that's listening and hearing that and watching that's going to take that as fact.
Yep.
And so there are those that say, you know what? Rodney Terry said every player I was going down their roster, and everyone wanted to come to Texas and didn't come to Texas, so they had to go to A&M. So if you're going to relate that story, first of all, I want to know how Buzz Williams responded to that. Well, maybe Buzz wasn't available. Well, okay, fine. Did you, Tom Hart, then push Rodney Terry? Oh, come on. You're going to tell me that Wade Taylor, who, by the way, I know for a fact, he told me that he was even committed to A&M under Billy Kennedy because his mom was, his grandmother lived in Madisonville. He kept coming down St. Aggie. But if you're going to tell me Wade Taylor wanted to come to Texas and you didn't take him, Solomon Washington, to put Penny Hardaway at Memphis, said we tried to recruit him. You're going to tell me Solomon Washington wanted to come to Texas and you wouldn't take him? And Anderson Garcia, and go down the list. And oh, by the way, who has the better team right now? Who won by 20? So you're saying, Rodney Terry, that a team that kicked your ass by 20 points, you didn't want the players on that team. And Tom Hart, you're not even going to question that? So, so it comes off that you're telling, whether you mean to or not, it comes off that you're reporting that all these players on the Texas A&M roster are only there because Texas rejected them. And you, as a reporter or the guy commentator, did not have the gumption to question Rodney Terry on that. So if you're going to report that or say that on the air, why don't you say, you know what, but I don't know because Wade Taylor, who's going to...
Well, and look, let's move on because we're 9 minutes late for a break.
Okay, that's my take on it.
But I also would say this. I don't know of a college athlete that doesn't want to be recruited by all the schools.
But that's not what he said.
Exactly. So I guess that's my follow-up to all that is like, my sons want to play college soccer. They're not going to Texas. There's no chance they're going to Texas. There's zero, but everybody wants to be recruited by big schools. You want to. Like, you don't, and you use for fire when they don't want you. Johnny Manziel used it for fire. Like, that is part of being a college athlete. So, yeah, I could have done without all that commentary, and we'll talk to him, and then we're going to move on. It's going to be that simple. When we come back, I want to talk Jay Bateman with you, because I think that's something that that really affects this team moving forward, not commentary. Milliken Reserve Time, farm-to-table community in College Station. They got homes, they got trails, they got farms, they got wide open spaces with a mission to build a healthy community around nature. They've been doing that for a while. They've created a sanctuary for family, for nature, and for community. 2,600 acres of open space, farms, 30 miles of trails, and homes. An extensive network of trails throughout a wooded landscape includes walking and equestrian paths, creeks and ponds, and gathering areas, a place for families to cherish for generation after generation. They have a variety of native species found in their homes, and that's where you can find all the birds, songbirds, the rabbits, the turtles, and the white-tailed deer. You can learn more at millikenreserve.com. That website is millikenreserve.com.
What's up, TexAgs? This commercial break is brought to you by my good friends over at Aggieland Chevrolet, the official automotive sponsor of TexAgs.com and me, Billy Liucci. Greg Gunn is the proud owner of Aggieland Chevrolet and invites you to visit the dealership to experience true Aggie hospitality From their friendly staff to the experienced service team, Aggieland Chevrolet is TexAgs approved. Check out the dealership off of Highway 6 in Bryan or go to AggielandChevrolet.com and tell them Billy Liucci sent you by.
All right, we're back here on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. The Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. OB just alerted me of the passing of a A&M legend. Jimmy Wright apparently yesterday passed away. I know he was a mainstay on TexAgs for a long time. Terrible news. I just went to the boards. I guess that's where it was broken.
Yeah, he was a wonderful guy, great friend, fun to be around. Always had some great stories. Lived a good life.
Yeah.
A great life, a life well lived, and an Aggie, a proud Aggie, played quarterback under Coach Bear Bryant.
I feel the day I met him was at the TexAgs kickoff luncheon. Maybe it was 21, 22.
I'm sure he was asking some questions.
And he was asking, and it was great. He had the place laughing. It was.
That was Jimmy. So
yeah.
Our hearts go out to Millie, his wife, and his family, and again, a life well lived, Jimmy Wright.
Yeah, here. So OB, Jay Bateman. I don't know what my opinion is on him. Look, I know my opinion on the defense last year. My opinion when they were 7-1 was the same as it was at the end of the year. And if you remember, we both on this show discussed, like, it feels like the Aggie basketball team we're talking about here. Like, we both said when things were going well, like, hey, we could see a path to where this team can be, in the playoffs and in the SEC championship game because they're winning these games and their defense is coming up big when they need to at the end of games. But they can't tackle. But they're not really getting at the quarterback, right?
Yeah.
And that was a theme throughout. So you can have questions and believe in people, and I believe in Mike Elko. I do. I've seen enough proof from Mike Elko face-to-face, behind the scenes, what he did as a defensive coordinator. Jay Bateman, on the other hand, I don't know. Could it have been first-year issues? Absolutely. Could it have been not getting your guys in the right spot? Potentially. I don't know what the issue was. He may be your DC next year in a different role, right? With more of as Billy has reported, more Elko will have more hands-on on the defense. But if he does end up going to Virginia Tech, it is a win-win for everybody involved because I'm going to use me as an example, or use you. If one day Billy comes in and is like, hey, I'm going to be the host of the show. I'm going to do most of the writing. You can still do some of the writing, but I'm going to do most of it. You get a point in your career where you're like, well, okay, I'm almost 50. I still want to stay at TexAgs. I'll do it. Or you're like, God, I still got 10 more years of being a DC somewhere. I want to be a head coach one day. I'm going to go elsewhere. And I think that's kind of like why it may work out for all parties, because at the end of the day, we're going to judge Elko for the way this defense plays. And he told us at the end of the season, I'm fixing it. You'll never see it again. And Jay Bateman's like, okay, well, if you're going to make some changes, maybe I'm not a part of those changes. Maybe I am in a different way. And this team wants me to be their main guy. Why not? And that's where I'm from.
Yeah. I don't have any ill feelings toward Jay Bateman. But all that I care about is A&M winning and playing good defense. And they did not play good defense last year. Is that necessarily Jay Bateman's fault? I'm not saying that. But you are the defensive coordinator, and some changes are going to have to be made. And maybe they're made with you still here in that role as defensive coordinator, and the changes, as like you alluded to, is they brought in some, they brought in some different players. That's part of the change. But maybe the biggest change is Mike Elko is more hands-on defense. And I hope he is, because we saw what he could do as a defensive coordinator. And I hope he is more hands-on until that defense starts playing at a more acceptable level. I love that the fact that Mike Elko was disgusted with the defensive performance in the bowl game and said, we will never see that again, okay? And whatever it takes for that to happen, to be true, that we'll never see that again, I'm all for, whether that means keeping Jay Bateman, but Mike Elko takes a greater role on the offense or on the defense, or Jay Bateman leaving. And if Jay Bateman does leave for Virginia Tech, then I wish him the very best, and I hope he's successful at Virginia Tech. And I hope they play good defense. But what I really care about is whatever it takes to make the Texas A&M defense play at a championship level.
Do we have the guys this year to play at a championship level? TBD.
Yeah, right off the top of my head, having not seen the kid from Iowa State or the kids from Florida that transferred and all those things, I'd have to say I don't know. But I have to be somewhat skeptical, and I'll tell you why. Last year, the strength of the defense was what?
Last year, the strength of the defense was
supposedly the defensive line.
When you ask that, I would say the strength of was supposed to be the defensive line, and then for most or a huge stretch, it was not. There was a stretch where it was.
Yeah, well, you know what? Even when they weren't playing well, it might have still been the strength because nobody was playing well.
Yeah.
So You're going to tell me that you're going to go play Notre Dame without Nick Scorton, without Shamar Stewart, without Shamar Turner, and pretty much the same linebackers. And now all those offensive linemen that were a hodgepodge of freshmen and backups are now experienced starters.
Right.
And they ran on you last year, and now they're not going to, right? Maybe the kid from Iowa State's going to make a big difference, but I got to actually see it. And then the linebacker play, I thought last year was average at best.
Yep. Let's hit a break here because we're way past it. We'll talk about our partners there at Southwood Valley Animal Hospital. That's where you can find Dr. Justin Casares and Dr. Lauren Casares. I met them, I don't know, like 8-9 months ago. They're awesome. Aggie owned and operated. They really care about this community. They care about bringing you the best vet care in the area. They've been serving the Brazos Valley for over 30 years, but they took over just a couple years back, and they were awesome. They took over in 2022. They provide advanced medical care at affordable prices, and they're elevating medicine right here in the Brazos Valley. They take care of the students. So if you have any kind of pet, they're going to take great care of you. If you're an Aggie student, just tell them. They'll give you a discount. And if you are a TexAgs listener, they're going to give you the TexAgs 12 discount. They'll give you $12 off of your first visit for being a new client. So make sure you go by and visit them. SouthwoodValleyVet.com. SouthwoodValleyVet.com. 979-693-9898. 979-693-9898. Everyone, David Nuño here in a moment right now for Snaps Clothing. They are the makers of the only official licensed Texas A&M Pearl Snap shirts. I'm wearing it right now. This is part of their Tailgater collection. It's built for game day. My friend Edgar over there is doing great work. You've got to check out the clothing. It's the Pearl Snaps. It's the cool look. It's kind of hip, but also Western. You'll love it, and they have great stuff there. They'll keep you comfortable as you're repping your Aggie gear, and it's the place to go to get it. Whether you're watching the game from home or tailgating before watching the stands, these shirts have you covered. Head to snapsclothing.com. That is snapsclothing.com to gear up for the season. OB, I'm going to just read a couple texts.
Okay.
So you're going to play defense for your boy Tom all day? Pretty disgusting. Did I play defense for him?
I don't think you did, no.
Okay. I disagree with the commentary. I'm sorry if that's not what you wanted to hear. So your official stance is Tom was taken out of context, really? Did I say that? Did you say that? Did I say that?
No.
Okay.
No.
I don't like what he said.
I think that Aggies have been annoyed with Tom for quite a while.
Absolutely.
And so it's a hot button issue, and to some right now, unless you say,
I go SEC mic on him.
Unless you really call him out, anything is taken.
Look, it's a no-win for anybody in this situation, but whatever. We owe it to our audience to have a discussion with him about it, and we'll move on from that. OB, thank you, sir. We'll come back with Tom. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. We've heard you. I know Tom's heard you. We're going to talk about it. Let's go to the Boss Firearms Hotline. We're joined by SEC Network and ESPN analyst Tom Hart. Tom, good morning, buddy.
Hey, David. How are you today?
So, buddy, I don't know how I am. So, how many times have we gone to dinner? Zero. The answer is zero.
Yeah, none.
Yeah. How many times have we hung out outside of work? I don't think we have, right?
No.
We're friends through work, and I would go to dinner with you, by the way. I'm just never invited. But I guess my point is, before I defend or come at you about your comments from the game on Saturday, We have a relationship through TexAgs that started well before I got here. We as TexAgs as a company. And I'm not here to defend you. I'm not here to come after you. I'm here to have a conversation with you. We talked yesterday morning at I don't know. I think Billy and I spoke at 8 a.m. and then you and I a little bit after, right? So it was early because this has been on our mind. And I know you saw some of the commentary on Twitter. So before I go specific, because you told me it was okay to bring up some clips, have you thought about the broadcast from Saturday, and do you understand where A&M fans are coming from?
Well, let me start with this. I just think it's important to point out to people who are unaware that I come on here every week, right? And I've been coming on every week for 6 years, since Gabe was doing the show, since before you were there. And I only think that's important to point out for a couple of reasons, not the least of which is some of the extracurricular chatter that I heard started coming from Longhorn fans. Like, oh, now he's going on TexAgs? Well, no, I'm on here every week, and I'm approachable, and I'm accessible, whether through TexAgs or social media, and I don't want to lose that accessibility. I really like that part of it. So, yeah, every game I go back and think about how we did and what the broadcast was like and if we could have been better. Sometimes we talk about it with coaches. Sometimes we talk about it with SIDs. It took Billy explaining to me kind of why some of the comments hit in a different way that I wasn't aware of. And it came back to the rivalry. And he, when we talked yesterday morning, he pointed out, he said, listen, these are things that people get upset about when it's Texas. And it doesn't seem to hit in any other way except it's Texas. So I understand, I think, a little bit better now how things were interpreted, but that doesn't change the context or meaning behind the way we presented ideas within the game. Maybe I need to take those sensitivities into account next time I do an A&M-Texas game, but I didn't get that same sort of feedback when we did the game January 4th at Reed Arena. So there is some confusion there, yeah.
So, Tom, I'll be honest, I told you yesterday, I watched the game as I'm watching my daughter's soccer game, and I'm not really hearing what you're saying. But I'm seeing the tweets, and I'm getting text messages, and I'm actually getting text messages from folks that typically don't complain. There's a group that complains, and there's a group that doesn't. And I'm hearing from the folks that don't complain. I'm like, oh, I got to go back and listen to some of this. And I talked to you about some of the bites, and it caught me off guard because, like, when I'm hearing it in the moment, I'm like, that doesn't seem like, I don't like that. Like, honestly, I forget how it was phrased, and I think it was about Rodney. We'll play some of the clips, but, like, for the record, I never in my life considered going to the University of Texas, ever. There wasn't a day in my life that I considered it. And most Aggies I know never considered it. But most athletes that I know want to be recruited by everybody. So I say that to you. I want to go to one in particular. It's where the Aggies were up by 14, and I think Nick's got this one ready to roll. Because this one is one I heard a lot about that I was like, I don't like the way that one sounds. Nick, can you play it for us?
14-point A&M lead. Almost matches the lead that Texas had in the football game at Kyle Field. They're up 17-0.
I didn't like that. It didn't feel right. It just felt like unnecessary.
But here's, I think the thing that's lost, and I'm not saying you have to approve of every single comment, but if it's just ball one, strike one, that is a very black and white, boring broadcast. This is a rivalry. This is a heated rivalry. And all of these things are intertwined. Every single one of them. When I was doing the Texas football game doesn't have anything to do with it that I did earlier this year, but all of this stuff matters, and it adds context to it. Texas is getting smoked at that moment.
Yep.
And I don't know anybody in the building, whether it be people that I ran into at halftime from Texas or the A&M fans that I saw at halftime, said hi to Mac Brown at halftime, like, that game was over. That game. So now from a broadcast perspective, just to add one layer, it's, okay, how do we hold an audience? Like, what are we going to talk about when this becomes what turned out to be a 22-point game? And it's not just, by the way, it's it's not just A&M fans that we're broadcasting to. This is a national broadcast. So, that's a throwaway line in the middle of a 2-hour and 10-minute broadcast. That if that's upsetting, then I don't know what to tell viewers. Like it's just a throwaway line. The lead in the football game was 17-0. It was the first time they played in 13 years. This rivalry is everything. It's not just basketball. It's not just Schloss. It's not just football. It's not just splitting with the volleyball team. It's everything. So anyway, I get it. I didn't know that was a horrendous thing. And a matter of fact, of all the feedback I got, that wasn't one that popped on my screen, so I wasn't aware of that.
Well, and I'm sorry, I should have probably told you about that one, but I guess
no problem.
There's a vacuum, and that comment in a vacuum probably hits differently than through a 2-hour broadcast. But I guess
100%.
But I guess also like A&M did just beat them by 20 in basketball, and that was so you know what I'm saying, like I don't know. Let's move on. The ugly kid in the prom, whatever that commentary was, I actually spoke to you. I know what your thoughts are on this one. Let's listen to the bite, and then you can kind of, because I know where you're coming from. Let's play.
We talked earlier about the confidence this A&M team shoots the ball despite not being a great shooting team. And you can't get hot like this and have no hesitation unless your coach instills that much confidence in you. And right now it is frustration station.
They're like the ugly kid insisting that the prom queen go to homecoming with them.
Well, they got a date right now because they are on fire.
All right. I know. I'm going to let you discuss it. I know why you said it, because it was more in your mind, it was more of a compliment on A&M's run based on all the metrics offensively, but you take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, the subject and the context was this is an A&M team that allows its players to play with abandon, sometimes reckless abandon. But we had discussed earlier, once again, context, that Manuel Basicki, in a game that Dane and I called midweek, does not have the confidence to hit the game winner against Ole Miss unless the coaching staff allows him to have that confidence. You have a host of players on this team, and I don't want to include Wade Taylor because he's an elite scorer, but a host of players on this team will have three-point percentages under 30%. We're talking 22, 25, 27%. That are allowed to shoot the ball as if they're 45% three-point shooters. That's how they run that program, and that's perfectly fine. But from the context of, well, why are they taking some of these shots? And why is this working? And by the way, after the game, all the Texas players who spoke with the media, Trey Johnson and Tremont Mark, both said, listen, we knew they weren't going to keep making them at that clip. Now, they shot well from three the entire game, but it was... I mean, I think I'm trying to find a way that people can relate to this kind of unearned confidence, right? We've all been at a bar with our ugly friend who sees a 10 and says, I'm going to go hit on her. Like, what are you talking about? She's not going to talk. But he's got so much confidence that somehow he gets it to work out. That was the comp to how A&M was shooting the ball. And by the way, they shot the lights out in the first half, and they still ended up shooting 50% for the game from deep. Now, once again, it's context and it's trying to add color. If I just simply read down the stats and said, okay, Texas A&M is 278th in the country from three. They shoot 31.4%. They're 240th in the country from two. They shoot 49.2%. They're 342nd in the country from the free throw line. They shoot 67.4%. I don't want to listen to that broadcast. That is pretty bland. Now, if the metaphor misses, it misses. And once again, it's 2 hours and 10 minutes. But the point is this, and we had said it multiple times in multiple different ways. So how can we get this to hit home that this is a team that's not a good shooting team, but they play like, individually at least, they are a great shooting team?
When you make that commentary against Texas, though, you know how it hits, right? Like it hits different because, and I know you're talking about the offense, but overall, like who's the better team? This year, the better team is Texas A&M. They lost the game Saturday. I recognize that. But this year, they've won the bigger games. They've won more games. They beat them by 20 last time. So, so it's hard to hear that when you're the ugly dude who keeps getting girls. What are you talking about? Look at my resume, bro.
Yeah, I think the disconnect here is I wasn't calling Texas the prom queen. It's calling the basket the prom queen. That was the comparison. The ball going in the hoop. It had nothing to do with Texas. I would have used the same line in the Ole Miss game midweek. I'd use the same line I have. Well, I won't use that same line again because obviously people are sensitive to it. I used the word belie earlier in the game. Their confidence belies their stats from behind the arc. And then I realized I didn't even know what that word meant before I looked it up. So maybe I need to boil this down in a way people can understand. The confidence does not match the numbers, similar to X. I don't know. I guess my question, David, is you said, well, it's against Texas, so people are going to be more sensitive. So it wouldn't have been a bother if I would have used that line in the Ole Miss game.
Oh, I think it would have been a bother. I think it would have been a bother.
Okay.
It would.
Okay, but we agree that this is an ugly shooting team. Like the numbers are ugly numbers. They're dead last in the SEC. They're one of the worst Power 5 in the country from shooting behind the arc.
And also one of the 10 best teams in the country.
Well, sure, but we spent a lot of time, numerous times, saying this is Buzz's formula for success.
Yeah.
Now, his formula for success does not include being a bad three-point shooting team or a bad free-throw shooting team. Like, that's not part of the formula.
Right.
They work so hard in other ways to make up for it, and we pound that every 46% offensive rebounding, best in the country, great defensive team, sometimes elite defensive team. We hammer that home every single broadcast. If I need to then repeat that every single time, once again, it's gonna get pretty boring.
I want to do one more because
Sure.
You're not on trial. Like we're just having a discussion, and because to be frank, Tom, I think Twitter and our message boards are two different places. Like Twitter is a place where people I think subscribe to be mean. Like that's what they want. Like there's nice too, right? And I think our message board, 99% of it is nice. There is some mean, and trust me, I got some strays that I'm like, but our subscriber base, I think, and again, that's where I'm coming from, is more from like normal folks that I talked to yesterday at a dinner. Like, why would he say it like that? I didn't appreciate that. And again, people listen. You know this because people listen to me for a few seconds, and then they got other tabs open at work, and then what did he say? And they take that moment. But these comments about you I've gotten them for a couple years now. Like everyone, like I got a message in July. I saw it today, July 2nd, about don't you realize Tom is dunking on A&M? And I don't think you are, but I do want to bring up the Rodney Terry comment about all these players wanted to come to Texas. We'll play it.
Yeah.
And then
before you do that, can I just say one quick thing? Like, I've been coming on the show for, like I said, 6 years, 7 years. I've always thought that the value I bring, and people can disagree with this, but they can say, yeah, you've got zero value whatsoever. I totally get it. That's a position I'm in. But it's a wider perspective of what A&M is and what the fans maybe don't see, right? And it's not all going to be sunshine and lollipops. I mean, I'm generally positive about A&M when I come on the show, but I'm also very real. And I think you recognize that. Like, yeah, Team X, whether it be baseball, football, basketball, whatever, had a great win. But here's some of their limitations, and here's how other teams in the league are better than them. I think that's what the value I bring is, that kind of outside context. But I digress. But go ahead.
All right. So here's the commentary from Rodney Terry about A&M players wanting to play at Texas.
Well, to your point, Rodney Terry yesterday, when meeting with the team, went player by player down the A&M roster and noted each and every one that wanted to play here at Texas. It extends past the players. There was a point in Buzz Williams' career when he interviewed to be a Rick Barnes assistant. He was down to the final 2. He didn't get the job. By some accounts, he was crushed that he didn't, but it all works out. The next job he took was an assistant under Billy Gillespie at A&M.
May have all worked out, but people don't forget, do they?
No, they do not. No,
All right, so I got a lot of questions about this one because I would have loved to have gotten Buzz's perspective on it. And Olin brought this up, and I thought it was a great thought. Did you push back on Rodney Terry? Like, hey, so you didn't want Wade Taylor? You didn't want Anderson Garcia? You didn't want these guys? What does that say about you and your staff?
Yeah, that was part of the discussion. Now, I didn't say, well, you whiffed on Wade Taylor. I mean, that's not my point, to challenge a guy when we're having a casual conversation, as is comes up. In fact, he brought up Pharrell Payne, and he said, man, that's the guy we missed on. That we had an in-home visit. I really wish we would have gone after him harder. That guy's a great player. That's the one we missed on. I don't want to put Rodney Terry on trial here, right? These were words that he shared with me, but it was relative to the motivation of this A&M team and how hard they play each and every game. And oh, by the way, fellas, you've only played in this rivalry once, right? And we got blown out at A&M. And once again, I wasn't at their team meeting on Friday, so I'm filling in the blanks here. These guys are going to come out and want to kick your butt for a variety of reasons. It's a rivalry. They wanted to play here. They wanted to be recruited by us. Not everyone. I didn't say every single player wanted to play at Texas. He went down the list. This guy wanted to, this guy wanted to, whomever. And I did not have the chance. Maybe it would have been a great article for, someone to write, to talk to the A&M players. Hey, what was your recruiting process like? What was it down to in advance of a game like this? But that wasn't done. So to add, once again, these conversations are adding context to the game and to the rivalry. And I want to point out, not just for A&M fans, this is a national audience, right? I don't know what percentage of A&M fans are watching versus Texas fans versus, some guy sitting in Peoria waiting for the Illinois game to come on who's just a college basketball fan or some casual fan. All in context of what this rivalry means and what kind of energy Rodney Terry expected A&M to play with and where that energy was coming from.
And we'll drop it here, but did you want to talk to Buzz about some of that stuff to get both perspectives?
I would have loved to have asked him, but I didn't know he had interviewed there. I think it was, my math might be off a little bit. I think it was when Frank Haith left to take the Miami job, and RT had been on staff for only a year or two, but it was an early game. A&M didn't have a shoot around at the arena. I didn't get that story until, 2 hours before the game. And, Buzz is great with us in terms of access, but can't exactly march up to him 10 minutes before tip and say, hey, tell me about the, missing out on the assistant job at Texas in 2003. Like that's not a conversation that occurs.
So let's close out with the same question that we started with. After kind of going through it, and again, I think this whole thing is weird. Like, we're talking about your commentary on it, but it was such a response by our fan base, and again, by those who I don't normally hear from, that it had to be addressed. And so I guess I'll go back to that first question. After talking to me, do you see more of where maybe we felt, or do you still nah, not really?
Well, I see frustration all the time, and I see when fan bases get frustrated. And I would never, I've said this forever, I would never tell a fan base how they're supposed to feel. I'm not going to tell you how you're supposed to feel about your coach or your player or the coach that left you or any of that stuff. I'm not going to tell you how you're supposed to feel about the broadcasters who are calling your game. I mean, we hope that you keep the game on. And if you don't like it, man, Monaco and those guys do an amazing job on the radio side. Flip it over, sync them. I don't really care about that part. This is not an A&M broadcast, right? This is a national broadcast, and our job is to bring context to what we're seeing on the floor and why this game matters and some of the storylines behind it. So to answer your question, I see the frustration. I know that fans are fans for a reason, right? And so that part I get. I don't get the vulgarity. I don't get the classlessness. I don't get the tastelessness. I don't get the attacks to a couple of guys who are just calling a basketball game. I get you don't like me. You don't like the other guy, whatever. Doesn't matter. Like that part, some people like chocolate ice cream, some like vanilla. I'm not your style. It's fine. It's totally fine. But the context of the broadcast is to be entertaining to as wide an audience as possible while documenting the game and adding context to it. So if the question is, do I understand and see some of those frustrations? Yeah, fine. I understand that part. I understand Aggies are hypersensitive when it comes to that team in Austin. If I would have known that before the game, though, I don't know that it would have changed any of our presentation. Remember, this is a game that A&M was up 22, right? This is not a game that is nip and tuck back and forth the entire way, and the game just takes care of the audience. Now, this turned into something, especially about midway through the first half where it felt like a blowout was coming. And let me just add one more thing.
Yep.
The other part of our job is to capture the emotion in the arena. When you're sitting on your couch, whether it's a team you like or a team you don't like. I'm a huge Chiefs fan. The emotion in Arrowhead Stadium, if you've ever been there, is second to none at the NFL level. Like, that is awesome. It's as close to a college environment as you can get. CBS did a masterful job last night allowing us in that and feeling that emotion in Arrowhead. When a home team is getting its butt kicked and it starts a comeback, the emotion, no matter where you are, is different than if the home team was up big and the visiting team comes back. That thing started to build and started to crescendo with Trey Johnson's play, with Tremont Mark's bank shot, all of that stuff. So to mistake my excitement about the game and capturing that emotion for being a Texas homer, a school, by the way, that I have zero ties to, never have, and have been there second to Oklahoma, the fewest of any SEC school ever. I've spent very little time in Austin. To mistake that for being a homer, I think is very naive and short-sighted. It's our job to capture that excitement. And if you're a casual college basketball fan, and make no mistake, at the end of that game in the last 5 minutes, that audience was at its peak. That's our job to capture that.
Tom, I appreciate you. Weird discussion, but it had to be done, and I appreciate you coming in and actually wanting to discuss it. So thank you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think it's good for people to understand. And once again, the vulgarity on Twitter and all that stuff was the turnoff. But I pride myself on being accessible, whether it's in person or on social media. And I hope that the portion of the fan base that was so ugly doesn't, whether it's me or others, doesn't scare us off from being accessible to fans that they're our livelihood. Like this passion is what allows me to do my job for a living.
Tom, appreciate you, sir. Thank you.
All right, David. Have a great day.
Tom Hart on the Boss Firearms Hotline. We'll hit a break. We'll come back. I think Andrew Monaco is close to joining the show, so we'll chit-chat with Andrew about what happened basketball-wise, football-wise, coming ahead as well. Right now, we're talking about our partners at Bird Dog. They're an Aggie-owned and operated company creating access to hunting opportunities. Think of it as an Airbnb for hunting. They make it easy for the landowners to get more hunters to make more money on their land. They still do that. But they also do a lot more stuff. They are just fantastic at making money for you by finding some tax benefits for you, right? So if you're farming or running cattle on your land, Bird Dog can help you optimize it and find the tax benefits. Some of their clients are making an extra $100 to $500 per acre. They can be your personal consultant and maximize the income on your land. To learn more about it, reach out to Jonathan Lusk and his team there at birddogit.com. That is birddogit.com. As a reminder, the final segment of the program is brought to you by Double Dave's. That's at 10:50. But right now, caller number 12, 979-693-1150. We'll hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave's. They've been serving Aggieland since 1984 with your favorite pizza and, of course, those world-famous pepperoni rolls, reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledaves.com and your favorites are on their way. And as a reminder, they are not open on Mondays. All right, let's do a little Around Aggieland presented by Normandy State Bank. Normandy State Bank, rock solid banking. The website is normandystatebank.com. And with that, we have Kay Naegeli.
We talked about the result in Austin. We're gonna end talking about the result in Austin. Men's basketball will host Oklahoma tomorrow night. So luckily, they have a quick turnaround. They can leave that one in the rear view. So that's, another more basketball news. Unfortunately, women's basketball, if you've not heard, Aisha Coulibaly is A&M women's basketball's leading scorer. They played LSU yesterday. She had a hard tumble to the ground. It looked like her right knee. She did not return to that game, so we are awaiting her status. That is a huge, huge loss for Joni Taylor's basketball team if she cannot return for this season. And again, that was an encouraging performance at LSU yesterday. Their efforts were undermined when Coulibaly went down. Lauren Ware got in foul trouble. They at one point were playing with 7 players available. The Aggies fell to number 5 LSU on Sunday, 64-51. They really hung around in that game and unfortunately just couldn't get it done. They just didn't have the bodies. The Aggies will continue their stretch on the road, traveling to Arkansas on Thursday for a 6:30 p.m. tip. So hopefully maybe we see AC back. If not, hopefully the Aggies can get it done without her. I'm going to move over to the women's tennis court. They claimed their 3rd straight sweep and 58th consecutive victory. That was against TCU on Saturday. They will host San Diego on Friday at the Mitchell Tennis Center. And then moving over to the men's side, they defeated number 23 Harvard 4-3. That was a tight one on their home court to secure a team spot in the ITA Indoor Nationals. They will be traveling to Malibu to take on Pepperdine. That is on February 2nd. Moving over to the track, Texas A&M's Deborah Chino, Cooper Cathraw, and Jaya Covington broke school records on the final day of the Ted Nelson Invitational. Both in the mile for Cherno and Cathraw. Cherno broke a 10-year-old school record as she crossed the mile. It was a 4:40 run by her, and then Cathraw a 3:58 run by him. And both in the mile, they were able to break school records. Just great showings all around from them. And then Covington finished the women's hurdles, 600-meter hurdles on the final day with a record-breaking time of 8:01. That is absolutely ridiculous stuff. So they will return to action this week as the men's and women's teams will split travel at the John Thomas Terrier Classic and the New Mexico Team Open. That will get going over this upcoming weekend. So
Thank you, KK. Appreciate you.
of course. Mm-hmm.
When we come back, somebody that we all like, Andrew Monaco will be on the show, the voice of the Aggies. Right now, a moment for Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. That's where you need to go when you're looking for a new vehicle. If you're looking for a truck or any kind of vehicle, let Caldwell Country Chevrolet be the place that takes care of you. They have a great selection, especially trucks. If you're looking for a truck, let them take care of you. But whatever, right? You got great customer service, great selection, and they're going to take amazing care of you. Complimentary pickup for their delivery for their service customers, and free oil changes for life on your purchase as long as you own that vehicle from Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Proud supporter of Aggie athletics and not a far drive. We're talking 15 minutes, the edge of Bryan to the beginnings of Caldwell. Short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the great people at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com.
God, I love that photo.
I love this guest. So I'm going to be very honest with you, Andrew.
Yeah.
I did not know how this weekend was going to go when I planned to have you on the show.
Yeah.
Okay? I think I texted you Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
I was like, I love getting Andrew on the show. Andrew Monaco, the voice of the Aggies, with us here on TexAgs. And my God, did I need you on the show today. Because there's a couple reasons. Olin is one of the most likable human beings in the world.
Yeah.
If there's somebody who's more likable than Olin, it is you.
I appreciate that.
You walk into this studio, and I'm just deflated, all right? Because just this basketball team infuriated me. Yes, the game was not fun on Saturday.
Well, the first 20 was a blast.
Well, but I was worried about the first 20. I'll tell you that in a minute. And then the whole Tom Hart conversation, which I'm sure Billy and I will come back to.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you listened to the broadcast or not, but the bottom line is all of us were in a no-win situation. Tom was in a no-win situation. I was in a no-win situation. TexAgs, but it had to be discussed. And you come in with this ray of light and this, like, you don't drink maroon Kool-Aid in a way that it feels like force. You see things from I just appreciate your perspective.
Yeah, well, there are maroon glasses, believe me. I wear them, and
I do too.
Of course, that one hurts on Saturday. It's not just an SEC game; it's the rival game. It's a 22-point lead. You're up 14. You answer and get up 14 with 6. And part of the problem is we've seen this happen before. It happened against UCF. It happened against Oregon. It's something that's going to have to be fixed if they want to be a team that gets to San Antonio at the end of the year. But that's where you step back and say it's a journey. And at no point is a season one straight line. And as we find out as Aggies, it's a roller coaster, right? And the highest of highs is when you come back and beat Oklahoma. And the highest of highs is stealing one at Ole Miss. And the lowest of lows is what happens on Saturday.
Right.
But that's what it is. But how do you respond? And this is the thing. I think we get so focused on responding after losses. How do you respond after wins? That's just as important. This team has won way more than they've lost.
Right.
And looking back, and you can't do anything about the back, you've got to learn from wins and losses. So interesting tonight, Aggie Basketball Hour with Buzz Williams. I'm going to ask him, how do you look at that game? Do you look at the first 20? Do you look at the last 20? Because there was so much good that happened, and then it changed. Momentum is such a, you've been in sports long enough. Momentum it's hard to get it. And when you lose it, it's hard to get it back. Right? And in that atmosphere. And the thing that you always want down the stretch is poise.
Yeah.
Right? So if I've just watched 40 minutes at Oxford and saw that there was nothing but poise on that Aggie sideline, and I'm watching, okay, it's falling away, and you're seeing that poise as well. Like, that's what you have to have. But in the 6-game tournament where it really matters, you're going to be faced with that. I've always said every national championship has a game that they find a way to win by not playing their best over any 6 games. Again, if you look at it as a journey, as a snap, if it's a snapshot, David, you're crushed. If you're looking at it as I'm going to show my age now, ready? Film strip. But as a film, you realize, just like any movie, you're going to have, there's going to be smiles, there's going to be tears, there's going to be this and that. Now, how do you go from this point out?
Right.
It happened. Own up to it. It happened. What did we do wrong? But don't forget what you did right in that game as well.
So I compared it in the first hour to Aggie football in that I've been seeing, I feel like this team plays with fire a lot because they are such a streaky shooting team, right? So with Aggie football, they're 7-1. I don't think they can make tackles, and I feel like they're giving up big plays, but they survived it.
Right.
And last week after the Ole Miss game, that game was awesome. I loved it, but I'm so worried about being worse than free throw shooting. I'm so worried about 3-point shooting, and it all
came back to bite you.
It did.
Right. It came back to bite you. So, I say a couple things in a game. Who plays to their identity? Right. I'm big on that. So, and most team and what's really fun about the SEC is there are so many different identities of all these schools.
Yeah.
Of the 16 schools, they all have their own identity. But there's also a part of me, David, in every game that I do, who hides their flaws the best.
Yeah.
And the flaws were magnified in that loss on Saturday. Because if you hit one free throw, it's a tie game. if you don't have an empty possession. And sometimes it's not the number of turnovers. They won with 20 turnovers at Oxford. They had 11 against Texas, but I think 7 came in the second half. And when do they happen?
When did they happen, right?
The empty possession, not getting an offensive rebound. Those things get magnified in losses, and that's why you have to go back and learn. Like a lot of people say, well, such a bad game, you got to burn the tape, right?
No, you got to learn from that.
No,
one.
you can do that in the pros. You can't do it. There's the body of work is so much shorter. You've got to look at it and see the flaws in that, right? But just because you won and at Ole Miss, just because you won at Oklahoma, you still have to learn from that. Like, why did you get in that position? And then what did you do to get back?
Right.
That's the thing. But yeah, dirty little secret, every team has flaws. So the job is we've got to pick at your flaw and keep doing that. Part of my problem on Saturday was the Aggies got away at times from what they were doing well. Can you feed Pharrell? It's an old NBA thing. You run the same play until they stop it or call timeout. So if you've got Pharrell, go to him. If you can't stop Wade Taylor, keep going to him. That's where the offensive rebounding comes in.
Right.
Because I don't think teams look at the scouting, oh, they're a good offensive rebounding team. Until you have to rebound against the Aggies, you don't understand the relentlessness of the way they attack. But it's got to be a predictable shot, because when it's a predictable shot, someone's the rebounder, someone's going back. When you take the unpredictable shot, now that leads to broken floor the other way. And they got away from that every once in a while. Not because they're being selfish, they want to win, but at times you're not getting everybody else involved. And again, it was magnified because you made this mistake and paid for it on the other end. And again, because it's a rivalry game, the pain is even deeper. You know what I mean? And because the first 20 minutes was some of the best basketball that you had played all season long.
So let's play the what if game. Okay. What if they lose the Ole Miss game and the Texas game, right? And what if they won them both? Like, what are we thinking today? Because I mean, like, I think because of who the opponent was on Saturday, how it happened, like, adds to, like, had it been reversed, how different we'd be feeling right now, too. Had they won on a last-second shot against Texas and maybe still lost the Ole Miss game, right?
So after Wednesday, you're going, how could you play that poorly?
Right.
You know what I mean? And it wasn't poor. It was Ole Miss was playing Ole Miss basketball, and they're difficult to defend. You know what I mean? But even then, you kept that game in the 60s.
Yeah.
So this is the thing. In a lot of those games, David, you see like it takes a little while to figure it out. And then all of a sudden, this defense and its connectivity starts to stop teams. And that's why they're able to make comebacks.
Right.
Like Oklahoma with that 5-out offense, which is what Texas plays and other schools will play. It takes a little while, but then that connectivity of this defense. And you see that's why in the last 5-6 minutes of some games they're able to make a comeback, because they're getting stops on one end. But on Thursday morning, you're going, wow, that's a disappointing loss. How do you lose? Now, again, I know they're 16. I know Ole Miss is 16, right?
Yeah.
But you're like, darn it, couldn't do that. You've had success against Ole Miss in the past, and you're feeling bad. And how are we going to beat Texas and this and that? Yeah, that's the thing. That's the emotion of it all. And again, because you found a way to win on Wednesday, does that lead to how you play? That's a quick turnaround. That's the late game on Wednesday, quick turnaround, early game Saturday. Is some of that emotion, some of that leading into the first 20 minutes of basketball against Texas? I don't know, but you make a great point. It's still a 1-in-1 week. Everybody wants to go 2-0. I get it. It's a 1-in-1 week, and you beat the ranked team. You lose to the unranked team. Then, because again, we're looking at the journey, where does that affect the net and quad 1 and quad 1A and this and that? That becomes the bigger picture, but you can't lose sight of you've got to be ready for the opening tip on Oklahoma. You know what I mean? You've got to let some of this not go, but you've got to be prepared, because it's another quick turnaround playing a Tuesday game against Oklahoma.
Talking to Andrew Monaco here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. And I think that is, while the quick turnaround for the Texas game I didn't love, I love the quick turnaround for Oklahoma.
Well, and it's a mirror opponent.
Yeah.
Right? But here we go. Like, this is the SEC. They just won 2 conference games, right? They just beat Arkansas. They were winless when A&M goes in to Lloyd Noble and get that win. Now they're riding a little confidence. It's they can't wait to get back on the floor again, but it's a mirror opponent, and it's not as much as if you were seeing them for the first time, and it's in your gym. I think what gets lost is I don't know how many players have shot at Norman or in the Moody Center. And they adjusted beautifully, I thought, Saturday to not shot in that building. And that's tricky. You know, some players they love some buildings, and there's some that just give them fits, this and that. So now the familiarity with Oklahoma, playing well, a lot of talent. Again, stop me if you've heard this before. Here's a fantastic freshman in Fears. Here's Jalen Moore playing his best basketball. Oh, and that's right. Bryce Godine just went for 34 against you. He hit all those threes in that one. So I think there is the part that you can't wait to get back on the floor. But the beauty about this team is let's do what we have to do one day before, two days before to be prepared for this as opposed to just stepping on the floor. They'll have all the answers.
You know what I'm going to do right here, right?
You know I'm going to stay for another second.
I wasn't going to ask.
Even if you
Just
wanted
kidding.
me to leave, I was going to stay. You were going to have to kick me out.
Let's do another one with the voice, Andrew Monaco. Right now, Rollo Insurance, the difference is real. They're an independent insurance company built around educating you on exactly what you're paying for. They do the shopping for you so that you can accomplish all of your insurance goals. They can write any form of insurance to anyone, and they've got 60 offices in the great state of Texas, but their headquarters is on Highway 6 right here in College Station. Call them up at 888-44-ROLLO or go to rolloinsurance.com/TexAgs. That is rolloinsurance.com/TexAgs. You can start a personal conversation with your own agent today. It is Rollo Insurance, rolloinsurance.com/TexAgs. 4 minutes left here with Andrew Monaco, the voice of the Aggies here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. I want to ask you about, and I don't know how I'm kind of tiptoeing around what the theme was before you joined us, okay? But the different perspective that you have to tackle a broadcast compared to a national broadcast.
Completely different. And
then also inside of that national broadcast, like, you also don't want to. Oh, I'm not going to do this to you, but you don't want to alienate the other part of the audience, and you.
But you can't help it because it depends on what they're hearing.
Right.
So if when you're doing a network game, right? Obviously, you have the two sides, and again, where you're playing the game influences. Like if you're Tom Hart and Dane Bradshaw, right? You have that comeback. You're going to play to that comeback because you know what I mean. But your preparation is for both teams. Your preparation is, can you get to the shoot-arounds for both coaches, and can you have that time that you get with them? The difference is, for me, it's an A&M broadcast, right? And I am my own producer. You don't always have that producer for that game for ESPN, or if you're on CBS, is looking at both that games, and you're trying to do both sides. If you go back to the Purdue game, the SEC is no longer on CBS. Purdue is in the Big Ten, which is now CBS, so that may be more Big Ten centric. I get it. But if you're Rich Walls and you're Jay Wright and you're Bill Raftery, you're going to talk to Matt Painter and you're going to talk to Buzz Williams and get that. Now you're talking coach to both of them, right? And you're going to say what the game dictates. Part of the problem in network broadcast is producers will have, we've got to get this in, this in, this in, and this
package in.
Not mattering what the game should dictate how you do it. That's not always what happens with, and I don't mean to throw producers under the bus. I don't mean to do that because
they have time to fill.
Right. And if I put all that work into this package, we are going to get it in. That's what it comes. Then it comes down to, what did I just hear? Did I hear that? You know what I mean?
Right.
And a national broadcast is not going to be for football Dave and me. You know what I mean? It's not going to be that. We're going to be fair to the opponent. Please don't get me wrong, because that's the professionalism that's there. But someone misses a tackle, he misses a tackle. You know what I mean? Like you say that. You can't ignore Will Lee's interception for a touchdown against Texas. That is there. Now, if you start poo-pooing that, saying that lucky, this and that, I totally get that.
Right.
And sometimes it can be the cheap shots that get you in trouble, where you think you're being clever, but it's not coming across as clever because not everybody has the same sense of humor, things like that. But it's supposed to be 50-50.
Yep.
I totally get that. And it's an SEC broadcast, so you want to be fair to both schools. But look, if you're losing, you're thinking, you're not talking about us enough. If you're winning, it's like, why would he say anything about somebody else? I don't want to say it's a lose-lose, but Tommy's been doing it for a long time. Dave Neal's been doing it for a long time, especially in the conference. And I think it also matters, what kind of relationship do you have with those coaches? And Tom has had one for a long time. We've had a lot of new broadcasters come in, which I think is neat because they get to see A&M basketball through a new lens. But there's also a part that's really nice. You can pick up a conversation from where you left off.
Well, I'll end with this. I've said this before, but when I was at ABC 13 in Houston, sometimes I had to lead with Texas. Sometimes I had to lead with Baylor, right? And it was difficult. Like the Aggie in me was like, but I treated it with the same respect and that I would for everybody. In this chair, it's an A&M perspective, right? And I'm allowed to be
correct.
So there's a part of me that understands it. I also didn't like what I heard, but we can move on from that.
No, I mean, and again, that's going to be each broadcaster like that, and I've seen Tommy an awful lot, you know what I mean? And it's someone that I like, but sometimes we as broadcasters step in it.
Yeah. I step in it daily, bro. It is daily.
You know what I mean? But there's also a lot who would not come on and answer. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there's something to that. But again, that's a testament to the relationship that he's had with TexAgs, right? To be here. And no, I totally get it. I've been in those shoes, so I understand. These are shoes that I also understand what the role is. You know what I mean? And again, a lot of it comes down to trust and all that.
I trust you, brother. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you, my friend.
That's Andrew Monaco, a dear friend of the show and of mine. All right, we'll come back with Buzz Williams and Billy Liucci. Welcome back into TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Had a great conversation with Andrew Monaco. Now we go to the Boss Firearms Hotline. That's where we find Buzz Williams to talk about the week ahead and look back at the last week. Buzz, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So I guess let's talk about the roller coaster week it was, from the Ole Miss game being a tale of two halves, and then the Texas game obviously not ending the way we all wanted it to. Just take me through the emotions, the ups and downs of a week that it was.
Yes, sir. I think that's just what the season has become. That was the ninth game that we've played this year that was either a 1 or 2 possession game. And I think it is a emotional roller coaster, and you have a different perspective in Oxford at the end than you do in Austin at the end. But I think the lessons that come from it are paramount. And I think what we have tried to do throughout the year is just make sure that our response, whether things are good or whether things are bad, that our energy is going to the next thing. You're seeing it even in conference play, how one thing turns into 4 things if you're not careful, because the margins are so thin. And our guys have been very mature in that. Again, 60% of the games that we have played thus far this year that weren't guaranteed games have been decided by 6 points or less. And so with 11 regular season games left, if those numbers stay the same, it's probably going to happen 5 or 6 more times. And so we've got to continue to find ways to improve and make sure that we're learning the lessons. Whether the emotion is good or bad, there's lessons to learn from it.
Talking to Buzz Williams here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. How would you assess Wade's return so far? Obviously, missing time and playing yourself back into shape can be difficult. How do you assess where Wade's at?
I think he's been tremendous. We really appreciate him being back on the floor. I think he and Eddie and Gep were in lockstep with one another in the 12 days that he was out. I actually think that we grew and improved with the guys that were playing, and that made us better. And I think having him back obviously makes us better, but he comes back and our team's a little different. So very thankful that he's back, and just kind of the wear and tear that this league goes through, whether it's whether it's Zoo, whether it's solo. I just think anytime you can have the depth that our team has and the maturity and the experience, that's also kind of what comes with the territory.
Buzz, how you mentioned Wade and being back, and how when Boots was out, that was last season for a while. How does Wade's return and kind of how quickly he's reassimilated with things compared to Boots last season? I felt like with Boots maybe he missed a little bit longer. It took a little bit before it felt like he was back 100% into the old flow that we were used to seeing from him.
Yeah, I think so. And that's not to be negative to Boots. I think Bohr has special gifts. I think Boots does too. But probably one of Bohr's gifts is just his IQ. And whether he's actually doing it or watching it or in the film room or just talking about it on the bus, his IQ is at such a high level that sometimes missing those physical reps will cause a delay in return. But I don't think that that's necessarily true with Bohr. I do think your wind and the pace of it all, you can't replicate that no matter what your IQ is. But I also think being the quarterback, that adds a lot of variability and volatility to it. And I think that's what makes Bohr special, is he's able to kind of figure all of those things out in real time at a very expedited rate for sure.
With OU on deck, and I guess that was actually the back-to-back y'all played to start SEC play. It's interesting how they both go back-to-back like that, but with OU on deck and the way that game went in Norman a few weeks ago, I know every game's different. The comebacks are different, how they happen, but everyone kept pointing to the Ole Miss game and say, SEC giveth and taketh away, hard to win all those things. But to me, this was the game, if you go back, that was the most comparable, where you guys were on the other side of it. As a coach in that situation, Buzz, when you can, no matter how positive you want to be, right, you can feel that momentum. You've done it, Porter Moser's done it a million. You guys know when it's happening. What's one of the keys to stopping that? Is it, do we sit here and our timeout usage overrated? Is it getting the right guys in there, or is it pulling the right guy out just to have a minute to talk to him? Or like what in your history, Buzz, when you've been on either side of this, what have been kind of some things you've learned along the way as a coach that maybe you didn't 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think all of those things are parts of it. And I don't think that every game isn't one answer. I think, to your point, like, it's a variety of things. I think, we lose at Central Florida by one possession. And then, in essence, 10 days later, we're playing a top 15 neutral site game, Creighton. It's a 2-possession game. And then the next day and a half later, we're playing Rutgers. It's a 2-possession game. We get home the following week, we're in Fort Worth. It's a 2-possession game. You get home the next weekend, you're in Indianapolis. It's a 2-possession game. In essence, 2 weeks later, conference play starts. Your first road game, it's a 1-possession game at Oklahoma. You come home after Oklahoma that weekend, you play Alabama. It's a 2-possession game. And then, in essence, the following weekend, you're at Ole Miss. It's a 1-possession game. And then the next game, this past weekend, you're at Austin. It's a 1-possession game. I think if you were to summarize all of those possibilities, I think the whole thing, Liucci, is a trustful relationship. Because I think you have to be able to tell the truth no matter your emotional state. And whether that's a player, whether that's a coach, whether that's player to player, whether that's coach to coach, those relationships have to be able to absorb the truth. And that can only happen in non-emotional times, so that when you're emotional, that the truth still prevails. And I think personally, it's not me. I think it's the relationships throughout the organization. For Texas A&M to have won more close games than any team in the country this year, other than 2, that speaks to the relationships. We failed on Saturday. I will take every bullet, whatever is being said on TexAgs, whatever is being said on social media. I'm completely comfortable with that's what becomes with the position. But the relationships that are in this program are why we are third in the country in close games. And that's why, we're tied for winning the most, but we've played in the most of that group as far as winning. We're 6-3. And if you really look at it, we bought 5 games. So there's 15 games other than those 5.
Yeah.
And 9 of those 15 have been 1 or 2 possession. And those 9 are all quad 1A, quad 1, or quad 2 games. And if you look at the remaining 11 regular season games, I'm not trying to project, so to say, but it looks like they're all going to be quad 1 or quad 2. And so I think that's the whole thing. Like, Ole Miss loses the game before they play us at the buzzer to their rival in a 1-possession game. We beat them the next game in a 1-possession game. They go on the road this week, end and lose. Like, what I think it's like any other high-level competitive environment. The event and the outcome, we understand. It's your response in all of that. And I think Our guys have had great responses. Does that mean we're going to win tomorrow? No, but it means that today we have to prepare, and that started yesterday. Hey, we've got to have the right heart posture to prepare for Tuesday, because we can't get back the failed opportunity that happened Saturday afternoon. And we've been on the good side of that 6 times, and we've been on the bad side of that 3 times. And that it was Texas, that it was an afternoon game, that it was coming after an unbelievable first half. Yes, all of those statements are accurate, but you still have to have the appropriate response going into yesterday's prep, today's work, and into tomorrow.
Well, I think you tapped into it. And my next thing I was going to ask you is, I think you're past, knew this already, but based on what you just said, like, you're past wondering how they're going to come into practice and to work the following day or couple days after a game like that. And you're right. Like, the hard thing to say is that was one of 18 basketball games in the SEC this year, because of the way it played out, because it's Texas and it's your first, so close to winning down there. Do you ever, because I think I know the answer to this, but it does impact seeding and stuff, just like the win at Ole Miss did. I'm sitting there Wednesday night saying, what a massive win. And then after this game, like, oh man, that'll be a tough one to look back on at the end of the year. You knew you coulda, shoulda, woulda, right? Or is it just, man, there's 18 of them. Yeah, in the heat of moment, you want to win every one of them. But because to me, you as a coach and players, you can't deal with the swings and emotion. And then when the game's over, it's like it's time for Oklahoma.
Well, a couple of things on that. Thus far, we're starting week 5, and each week thus far, Texas A&M has alternated. We played Wednesday, Saturday, and then the next week we play Tuesday, Saturday. The next week, Wednesday, Saturday, and obviously this week is Tuesday, Saturday. And when you're in those shifts, and those shifts are happening every other week, that means your organization works 9 consecutive days. That doesn't just apply to us. That applies to anybody that's in that shift. And so we played last Wednesday at Ole Miss, and so that means the Sunday before Ole Miss, we were off. So we worked Monday, we worked Tuesday, we traveled, we played Wednesday, get home at 4 o'clock in the morning. We work Thursday, we work Friday, we travel, we play Saturday afternoon, get back Saturday night. We work yesterday, we work today, we play tomorrow. So 9 days. And in addition to the emotion, the travel, if it's a part of that particular swing, the timing, are you on East Coast at South Carolina? All of those things are bits and pieces of it. And mathematically, is the rivalry, is it home, is it road? You're going to play 9 on the road, you're going to play 9 at home, you're going to have 3 mirrors. That's 6 of the 18. The other 12, half of them are on the road, half of them are at home. I think metrically, we woke up Sunday morning and we rose in the net.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about seeding, as of today, 48 hours later, we're 12th in the net. Does that impact seeding? I'm not in the room. I don't know who's on the committee. I'm never going to touch that again since the NIT year. But they say it does.
Yeah.
They say it does. Does scheduling matter? If you look at all of the Power 4 schools, we're top 10 in non-conference strength of schedule. And as of today, we have played 0 quad 3 games. Now, I know that may change, but we currently have 15 games that we have played against quad 1 or quad 2 games. That was a quad 1 loss on the road on Saturday that we completely failed at. And I hate that, and I have to do a lot better job. But I also know that the game at Ole Miss 4 days before, we were dead in the water, and the resilience and the response and the character and the maturity and the skill of our coaches and of our players. Analytically, we came back from the dead. It wasn't Easter. It's still January, but that's not supposed to happen. Same thing that happened in Norman 2 weeks before that. And so I think if you're a fan, I've never been that, but I understand the emotion. If you're a blogger, if you're a media personality, I think that there probably is time to pontificate. Man, can you believe how terrible Buzz is? And how did they do this? And how did they do that? And I understand. But I think in the organization, to your point, man, I can't believe, guys, that we beat Ole Miss. Can you believe that? We went on an 11-2 run the last 3 minutes and 54 seconds. And Mo, what a great shot. And Zoo, thanks for passing that ball. And what about that free throw block out? And we played Van Alstyne the right way. We didn't call timeout. Well, you can argue I should have called timeout after 12 hit that floater with 3.7 seconds left. And there's so many factors that play into that with one timeout left in a variety of situations. But I think the whole key is we can't give away our energy or our emotion on Sunday to what happened on Saturday. And that can't bleed into Monday, and it happened 2 days ago. And now all of a sudden we have failed in our response. We've got to put our energy and our emotion into the things that we can control. And what's coming up that we can control our prep leading into a game against Oklahoma, which in many respects, they beat us from start to finish. And so we got to figure out how to be better because we beat them in that way, and they lost 2 more games after that. So they started 0-4 and now have since won 2 coming out of a bye. They've already had their bye. And so they've won 2 in a row, and we've lost 1 in a row. And so we've got to handle the next thing in front of us, and that's Coach Mosier, and that's the Oklahoma Sooners.
SEC is wild, man. I you grew up in this state. You know how badly the Aggies want to beat Texas and everything. But to me, it was more like just knowing how hard it is to get those wins on the road, and it was that close. But you go back and you say, okay, well, then we also got to win at home, and that's what's up tomorrow night. So looking forward to that one with OU. That was a great game up there in Norman. Another big one. I mean, Buzz, this feels to me like an 18-game NCAA tournament. Like, there's just not, like, I looked at the schedule before the year and picked the games. I thought, okay, they're going to win this one and this one and this one. And those are all completely up in the air, too. I mean, and that goes for everyone right now.
Yeah, it's, I think everybody's playing the thinnest of margins, and everybody is fighting, whether you're a coach, whether you're a player. How can we win this possession? Is there a need for an adjustment? Should it be this personnel grouping? Should it be this ball screen coverage? Should we play this a little different in transition? How are we going to handle specials? When do we want to call a timeout? Is it out of bounds under? Is it side out of bounds? Should we show zone or should we switch everything? Like, there's so many variables that all coaches and players are aware of. And I think when you're fighting for that possession, just like whatever that was, Wednesday night, there were 3 games decided in the last 30 seconds of the game. Well, it just so happened we were one of those, and we ended up on the good side. And then you wake up on Saturday, and we're not immune to it, despite being up 22. Yeah, we were on the other side of that. We led, in essence, for 39 and a half minutes. And so, again, how do you respond? And that comes from everybody in the organization, not just me, not just that comes from everybody because we all have buckets that we're accountable for, and we have to be our best for each of these 18 because, again, there's so much volatility in all of it. You just got to, whatever they say, like they do with those horses, you got to put blinders on and just be accountable for being your best.
Buzz, we appreciate your time, sir. Good luck tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Buzz.
Thank you. Buzz Williams on the Boss Firearms Hotline. We'll hit a break. We'll come back. Got a lot to talk about with Billy right now. Heritage Films, that's a company that makes documentary films about families and family businesses and family ranches and just good old stories. Chance McClain is the founder of Heritage Films. He loves telling people stories in a 2-hour documentary form, and I think you're going to love it. I know for a fact a couple friends of mine are doing it soon. And I think you will, once they do it, they'll be able to report back because they're on the show from time to time. They'll be able to report back how great it was. We did it. It was awesome for my dad, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it. He's a first-class guy who travels all around the country to do these stories, all around the world, to be honest with you, and he can do it for you. The website is yourheritagefilm.com. Yourheritagefilm.com. 713-893-8341. 713-893-8341. It is Heritage Films. We're back here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Hour number 3, Billy in studio with us, obviously. Billy, we just talked to Buzz, the basketball game on Saturday. I started the show off with considering the week that it was, the amazing comeback against Ole Miss, right? Considering the opponent, considering the storylines that played out in that game. My goodness, what a kick in the junk.
It was, it took this off when I took the earphones off. It was the worst way to lose, the worst opponent to lose to lose there in a game where a lot of their people were like literally leaving for the exits at halftime. And again, I mean this, like, I hate losing to that logo and that color. I hate losing down there when you have a chance to win, because what people don't want to hear is that Texas is and historically has been really good across the board in sports. So that's why when you go beat them in volleyball, it's a big freaking deal. And when you beat them in Omaha, it's a big freaking deal. And when you see them pop up in your regional, we all get pissed off because, like, how did they always want to match them up? But then when you beat them, you go, thank God they were here. I really enjoyed that. That made it that much better, beating those guys. So when you have a chance to beat them twice in a season and maybe run them out of the gym twice, had you started that half differently, or once you got out to that lead, to have that like right there at your fingertips. But for me, it goes beyond wanting to beat Texas, because there's a reality to this that no one will care to reference. But right now, today, A&M should be better than Texas in baseball. I fully believe they will be. They have been for the last few years, and even with the coaching change, I still think I don't think they're ranked higher. They have better roster. They're going to be better. Basketball, they're a better team. They lost yet on Saturday. They're a better team throughout the course of the season. Texas is going to, they're going to be a much lower seed, have a much tougher path. Texas A&M should and needs to, with all the veterans they've got, they should have the better basketball season. It's not. It is about losing to them, and it is about, look, if you're going to play this, this Lone Star showdown, you're going to if we're keeping score, beat their ass.
Right.
Okay? If we're keeping score, beat their ass, because I don't want to look up at the end of the year and have a bunch of L's to Texas. I mean, I don't care if it's on the court, if it's on the field, if it's in the pool, if it's, if it's on the track, if it's on Twitter. I don't want to see a bunch of L's. Okay? If you're going to do this thing and keep score and have a sponsor, Cotton Holdings, and you're going to, and there's a trophy, then you better win. And so you had a chance to win. So that makes it tough. But the real thing that made that a tough Saturday, David, was just knowing how close you were and how much game control you had. Then again, what is game control in the SEC right now? I don't know. I don't think anyone does. But 18 and then 22 points, you should win that game 10 times out of 10. And it's, forget the logo and forget that it's maroon and white and burnt orange. You had a chance to win back-to-back road games in the SEC. I don't care. If Wade Taylor's half-court shot went and you blew the 22-point lead, but it wouldn't have mattered. Like, you were that close to winning back-to-back road games in this league against tournament teams. And that, my friend, is where the real frustration lies and where you go, damn. So now you look at the OU game, and that really feels like something you need to go out and win at home.
Yep.
You were unable to get the sweep against Texas. If you can get the sweep against OU, but it's little things. It's like, if I'd have told you they were going to go 1-1 this past week, I think a lot of people would have taken it.
Yeah.
Now they would say, well, we better beat Texas and lose to Ole Miss. But a lot of people would have taken that 1-1. If I'd have said you have a chance if they beat OU to go 3-1 against OU and Texas, you go, okay, good. That's a check. They have a chance to do that. They have to beat OU at home now. But we're all going to know that you were that close to not only beating them and going 2-0, but more importantly, improving to 5-2 in the SEC with a home game coming up and with another road game against a South Carolina team that is they're struggling. They're playing well. They're struggling in the win-loss department. So you had a chance to build some real momentum there. You still do. But damn, that's just, you look at it and you go, that's a real wasted opportunity. The difference in football and basketball is you can make that up.
Yeah.
You can make that up they've played what, 7 games? There's 11 different ways you can make that up moving forward.
Along with the frustration of the game was the commentary during the game.
Yeah.
And I think you heard my interview with Tom.
I've heard part of it. I've got saved, so I need to go listen to the rest.
And I'm sure you've seen some of the commentary on the boards and online.
Well, I want to start before you say anything by saying this. People can come at me. I don't, I would say I sign up for it. I don't with our own fan base, but 90%, or maybe it's 80 now, are civil. I thought they had a very legitimate complaint.
Mm-hmm.
I went back and listened to some of it. It's tough to go back and listen to when you watch the game, because to go back, you got to watch. You got to watch
stuff
game.
You don't want to watch.
So that was kind of like, it's double. We're going to do this, but I didn't listen to it live. Obviously, I was down there, but with you, I think people listening, to go after David, it's fine. Like, you're not above criticism.
No,
I'm not. But take it back the other way. So, understand that he does this radio show and we're on the phone yesterday. You're texting me at 7:30 in the morning. We're on the phone at 8 on a Sunday. David took the initiative to call Tom, say, hey, look, whether you agree with the decision to have him on or not, there was a conversation and between me and David first. Then he called Tom Hart, talked to him on a Sunday morning of hey, here's the deal. Here's where people were upset. Here's why. Do you want to come on and talk about it, or would you rather not? And Tom said, yes, I would like to. And he did the interview. To me, I thought it was weird for me to jump in here because I haven't done the Tom Hart interview in multiple years now. I'm not the principal to come in here and babysit. So I was listening early. You did a good job. Your job was going to depend, I think, on how Tom answered.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you're going to please some people that wanted you to go off the rails and yell and scream. And that's just not typically what you're going to do. I think there's been maybe one exception.
There was one.
Over much less, too, mind you. Over what he say that.
And I felt terrible afterwards.
It's not your style.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think you've done a good job with this. You're not going to please everyone. We're not going to please everyone. But contrary to what some people, I'm going to give one message to the people that are, if you're not civil, and if you're a complete jerk, and if you go and you want to make up crap that's not true about him, us, the company, me, and if you cross that line and take it too far, you are gone. It's okay. But you will be gone. Most of the people, so this is what happens. Oh, they just can't take criticism. Go read those threads.
There's a lot of criticism.
There's a ton of criticism at me, at you, at TexAgs, at especially at Tom Hart. There's a ton of that, and it's up, and it's stayed up. If you cross the line, it's just because the overreaction to take it to a personal place and to start calling out people's integrity and character because of the way the announcer who has been on our show every Monday for 6 years, then that's on you. That's on you. I know people are going to get mad at me about that. That's fine. That's on you. I'm talking to 5% of you. But unfortunately, it's the loudest 5. The other 95, your voices are heard. I went through and read all that. There's plenty of criticism all the way around, and it's up. And it's up, and people aren't getting banned, and you're posting about it, and that's fine. And I agree with you. Some of those, and what I told Tom, I don't know if y'all touched on this, but I said, one of the things, I think people on some level are underestimating this rivalry because they haven't seen it. And you're underestimating how no one in Maroon White wants to feel any level of disrespect from the national, the local, any media, from Rodney Terry, which that thing he did at the end of that game, it was pretty Bush League.
Yep.
Okay, I don't think Rodney Terry's coaching there next year. He can have his moment, but it's the same guy that was crying about to the UCF when they were doing the horns down last year. You can't have it both ways. You can be the coach that runs around and sticks his tongue out and is screaming in the handshake line and couldn't wait till he got 10 feet away, but you can't be that guy and then the one that's complaining about horns down. So a lot of Longhorns I know agree with that too. That's a bad look. But I think that what I was telling him was this is Alabama Auburn in terms of hate, like the rivalry.
Yeah.
And that analogy, I think, as much as I could be wrong, I think that analogy, and I know there was a negative tone even when A&M was winning. There were the score comment, but
yep.
I know Tom Hart doesn't hate A&M. I saw somebody saying, well, he had dinner with Slosh and Austin. Well, he was doing that here every time he came here too, and everyone thought that was a good thing. I do think if I'm listening to that broadcast and I don't know him, and I told him this, like, take out the fact that we know you and know you guys over there. Like, I would have heard that. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? And I also have plenty of games where I go to, in my head, like, that announcer sucked.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's when my team's losing.
Sure.
We've gone into it with Tom before about that LSU game where they didn't point out the end of the game fumble. There was the Ole Miss game, Lane Kiffin calling Bryce Anderson and not being held to that standard. I was on back then with him. We did talk about that. Would you have done the same thing with Lane? Had Jimbo Fisher done that? But I think the one that took it there to me, the one I heard was the whole prom thing. And I'm like, man, you could have done any other analogy, but that tapped into, in my opinion, and I'm an Aggie from 1992 on, and from the minute I stepped foot here for Bonfire my senior year. But when you tapped into that combined with the Rodney Terry stuff where the players didn't want to come here, that tapped into that whole, what I say all the time, that arrogance emanating from down there, the whole 100-year battle of big brother, little brother that they try to put, like, all it touched on that nerve in a game while A&M is giving up a 20-point lead there. And I think I was just trying to analyze that and say what set it off to that level. Because I do think he's probably does games every week and deals with a lot of SEC fan bases, and the word sensitive is one that people would say. And I agree. People say that about me. I'm sensitive. I'm going to come out swinging. You're sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
I think our fan bases, and we're a product of our fan base and our culture, we're sensitive. But it's a fighting sensitive. And it's like we get fighting mad, and especially when you feel disrespected. And I think that's what happened. You guys can disagree with me. I don't think it was intentional. No one will ever agree with me on that. That's fine. We don't have to. But in the aspect of, like, demanding change and this and that, like, man, we listen. There's a lot of people that are no longer on this show that you and I have had discussions about. And what I have found to be the right approach for our company, which ends up for the subscribers, well, long term, is we revisit these things at the end of the year. And we'll have another talk probably today. I will, with Tom, say, hey, what do you think here? But we listen. I could give you 8 million examples of how we listen, and our goal is to better this radio show and this product every single day. Every single day that I wake up, every single day that I work for this company, and you and a couple people here that are brand new, we're all trying to make this better for us and for the subscriber and for Aggies. And some of the stuff that I read on our own message boards, I could care less about other message boards. I could care less about Twitter. I know there are people that wake up every day to despise me, and that's fine because I see the other side of it. And you guys are losing the battle because it far outnumbers. Just like the 5% that go crazy, you are far outnumbered by the people that just had a legitimate, fair complaint. They didn't like the way that they did not like that listen Saturday. And I get it. But every day we're doing this. And so as we're sitting there and everyone's talking about Tom Hart, you and I have multiple future guests in the works. Some from
a big one next week that's going to start.
Some from that same network that I think has been wonderful. It's been a wonderful working relationship both ways in terms of anytime anyone from there comes in, the accommodation and all this stuff that a couple people are saying, well, they're getting paid. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say how much our guests get paid because A, if it was a lot, I wouldn't want to say. B, I'm afraid people think it's too little. But I promise you, no one that comes on here, and it just is what it is. We're not a $50 million company, and we have a whole hell of a lot of guests. They ain't coming on here for the money. I can promise you that. It is like a big lunch or a dinner every time anyone comes on here, from whether it's Jordan Pugh, Jamie McCoy, Tom Hart, anybody. So that thing, cut that crap out. Focus on something besides that, because if you're doing that, you are trying way too freaking hard to make a conspiracy or make us look bad. You're efforting way too hard. You have no freaking clue what you're talking about there. But we're working to get more guests on.
I'm telling you.
Honestly, that we're trying to get some that we will come out of our comfort zone for, because we think that's important for y'all. Even a couple of the names had been mentioned, I think, in those threads without them even knowing.
I'm just going to say this. Starting next week, we're about to have one of the most popular names in college football voices.
Good.
That's what I'm going to say.
Well, and that's a lot of hard work. I don't know which one it is.
Weekly.
But that's a lot of hard work on your part, and there's more than one. And we continue to do that, and we're going to continue to do that. We're going to kind of sift through this thing and evaluate, how do we close out this season with it. But again, I hope most of you appreciate the fact that I can't, he can't, Brandon can't. It's to really ride the wave. It's hard to, somebody has to not do that.
Yeah.
And man, to say we don't listen ignores, and that's another small group, but they're the loudest. I see those posts. I'm like, all right, did you say it respectfully? Okay, you're on.
Yeah.
Did you take it there? Okay, take a seat. Most of the people have been respectful. They still, on any of these meltdowns, and by the way, it would help if they beat Texas.
It would.
Because the meltdowns a lot of them have come involving the Texas Longhorns. And that's what I was trying to explain to him. Look, this rivalry is as passionate, intense as any. I know Auburn, Alabama. I get it. LSU doesn't have one like it. Arkansas doesn't have one like it. I mean, there's OU, Texas, but they're both coming in. The SEC, even though it's hey, we always say SEC ready. Are they ready for the SEC grind? I'm not sure the SEC was ready for A&M-Texas and what all's going into that. Because the Aggies lost to Texas at Kyle Field 17-7, and it changed so much, I think, of the attitude and the just the vibe of the entire offseason.
Yeah.
I'm not into this win one game if it's Texas and the season's a success. That's stupid. That's like Michigan saying they had a better year than Ohio State. But I am saying it feels like about a 2-game swing. Like A&M went 8-4 and lost to Texas. I think the vibe in on the message boards and in the fan base, if A&M had gone 7-5 and beat Texas, would be one of a lot more hope and optimism. It's that significant. And so Saturday was as well. And then when you mix in that you tune into that thing and you feel like, man, I feel like our program is getting disrespected. I thought Rodney Terry did that.
Yep.
With that commentary. So we got to do a break.
Yeah, we got to do it. And I think we may have to double up this break because we went through a couple stop signs. And then we're going to go extra long on YouTube and on TexAgs.com. We'll be back as TexAgs Live. Look, we got to get back on the clock, so we're going to hit a quick break here. I'm going to read something, but we'll talk Jay Bateman, and we'll go super long on TexAgs.com and on YouTube because we haven't talked about that with Billy yet. Right now, we're talking about the Association of Former Students. If your organization or business is looking for an opportunity to engage with Aggies, then you need to check out the Association of Former Students. They bring Aggies of all ages together during marquee events held throughout the year. We're talking marquee events like All Aggie Hullabaloo Gathering. They all welcome tens of thousands of guests, and there are many sponsorship and vendor opportunities to get your brand in front of those attendees. They offer a wide variety of both digital and in-person options to promote your brand. They include title sponsorship naming, on-site presence, activation, recognition, and social media posts, and much, much more. There's also advertising opportunities in the Texas Aggie magazine and the Aggie News newsletter, which are seen by over 230,000 people. So if your business is ready to engage with Aggies, choose a partner that's been supporting the Aggie Network for over 140 years. For more information on options available through the association, please email sponsorships@aggienetwork.com. Final segment of the program, and by final segment, we've got 1:40 left on the zone. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We are going to be on YouTube for an extended period of time and on TexAgs.com. So all you super mean texts at 979-693-1150, we will probably not read them, but the nice ones, we might read them. Anywho,
if they're
you don't want to hear the triple X ones that I've gotten.
Well, not those. I mean, and that again, here's the deal, man. That the one thing, and I think I'm looking at the boards, and I think Tom may have been focused too much on what people are saying on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
That's the worst among us. It's the worst among us. It's the worst among Longhorns, Bama, LSU, Oklahoma, Florida, Tennessee, like you name it. It's the worst among us. Because there is no bar that you have to clear. At least on our forum, you still know that most of the people are rational, reasonable, and you know that, and this is what people have loved to make into a thing. There are consequences. Not consequences for being critical, not consequences for disagreeing, not consequences for wanting Tom Hart to not be on the show anymore, or any guest. Consequences for being like what you're talking about. And so I think when Tom says sensitive or over, like, I think he's probably focusing on what he's reading, and that's the worst place to read, which is Twitter. And I know there's some bleed over to TexAgs because we get it, we catch it, but it ain't nearly as much. And I think, like I said, 90% of the criticism is warranted and it's felt. Now, with that said, I don't want to be the guy that focuses too much on, are we all fair? I don't want to be the guy that focuses too much on the you-know-whats, the jerks.
Yeah, but I do want to say this.
You've got to be careful to not do that and ignore the reasonable, rational people that were upset.
We should talk about real business here, but I just want to make a comment. There's one guy who has made 3 different Google Voice numbers to text the show mean things about you and about us and me, and I just think it's laughable that that's what a grown man who's friends with people you know, by the way. He's, by some of the commentary I'm reading here.
Give me some friends. Because, here's the deal with me. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm not going to be likes to fight guy.
No.
But I am likes to, if you go to those levels and you know people I know, you can get to me. So if it's bothering you that much, I'll sit down and talk. I just said, I'll sit down and talk. I don't care. I'll come to your work. You don't want me to know your work because all you want to do is sit here and criticize our company, our business, our character. But you damn sure don't want anyone to know who you are doing this.
No.
You don't want to go sit down at lunch at your work. So you can come in here. We'll sit down and talk. And I mean talk. I mean sit down and say,
I'll give you a TexAgs shirt.
What is bothering you that much that you have to act like that? You know people that know me. Tell them. Say, man, I'd love to sit down with him, and maybe you can change me. Maybe you can tell me something that, you know what, you're right. I doubt it. You might. If something was bothering me that much, to not to text in 3 times, but to do it from 3 different made-up numbers to say the kind of things you're saying, man, I'd want to address that.
Yeah.
Most people, 99.9% of people are not like that. No. That guy's got to sit there and look at himself and know how he's acting, and I'll probably not be very proud of it. And you can keep texting in, and I'm going to continue to talk about you.
But he's not man enough to text from his real number, so let's just move on, because he's not worth our time. He's not a man.
No, and it sucks, even to focus on that, because I want to focus on, the people we will, again, I think I got to go back and give this a listen again. Like I said, I was driving in here and then stopped for breakfast. So I've got to go back and give that a listen. And we listen, man, we do. And we're always trying to better and upgrade the show. And it's a fine line to do what's right for the show. And I know you guys don't want to hear that, but we've got great relationships across the board with a lot of our guests from every Houston radio and SEC Network and unaffiliated.
Bob Stern and
people were pissed when I brought Caroline Fenton on after an LSU game that we won.
Right.
You had a couple people mad that I had a female up here talking about a football game afterwards.
Mac Brown.
She just continues to soar up. She's doing great things in sports. So there is a line to kind of a balance to be met of, okay, it can't be angry mob dictates everything. There's a reason why we own and run the company. Like it's our livelihoods. We want to make the decisions, but every one of those is to make the product better, but it's both short and long term. So we'll figure that out. I think I don't want a lot of people to be going apoplectic. And it turns out for no reason. There was a lot of apoplectic with Barrett Sallee. There was a lot of apoplectic when you had Tim Brando on.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
There's a lot of these things, and then we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Well, at the end of the day,
know this, okay? Whether you agree or not, and I'm not hinting at anything when I say this. Whether you agree or not, please understand that we're taking time out of the workday, out of our Sunday, out of, whether that's going to take us an hour or 20 hours, 24 hours, whatever. We're taking our time to do that and take it seriously and listen and kind of weigh like, okay, what should we do here? It's not a one person decision. We're going to sit down, not just me and him either. I'm taking input from Nick because he is a very, for like, is it Panther Ag that's consistently taking shots at the show and stuff? That's fine if you don't want to listen.
Don't listen.
But you don't have to come on there and critique and go into the other chats and critique it and just say, like, if you don't want to listen, don't listen. But, Nick Savage busts his ass every day in there. Busts his ass. And everyone in here knows that. Most of you don't know him. To put this show together. And his job is he tries to make this show better. So, if you think Nuño is there in that chair, so that makes him a target. If you think I'm a target, that's fine. But like, just think about some of the things you say and who they impact. Besides, if you think we're robots, that's fine. But besides that,
hey,
and by the way, that dude's not a robot. I'm just telling you.
AI. No,
he acts like one and moves around like one, but he's not.
But by the way, we do need to talk Jay Bateman. I signed up for this. I love it. I also know that 99.9% of the people I come across are amazing. It's embarrassing when my kids are reading over my shoulder and read some of the things that are posted on our boards, and I have to explain it to them, but we signed up for it. If we can make it about the product. And you want to talk about the show, and I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's certain times I leave the show, I've called you like, dude, I think I sucked. You know it. Like, I take this serious. You take it serious. Like, but when A&M sports are doing this, I'm a lot better host. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Oh, look, here's the deal, and it doesn't justify or anything, but like, if A&M and Texas are even in the second half and the Aggies win by 18, a lot of this vitriol's not there.
Yeah.
That's sports. That's fandom. I've been on the other side of it. I always like to think, how would I act if I didn't do TexAgs and I was an Aggie that was on TexAgs? I like to think about that sometimes. I will say, there are some people that I look at today where I go, I would never act like that in a million years. I would not feel the need to come on there and say that in writing. And if I did and I was about to hit send, I would go, not really necessary. But I would be sitting there in that group that said, man, that was ridiculous that I had to listen to that. I probably would have tuned, that was ridiculous that I had to listen to that while watching my team blow an 18-point lead. That would have pissed me off. So I get it. I like writing about Jay Bateman yesterday.
That was big news, man.
Because to me, like, it was, well, it's not big news yet. But
no, but it's big.
I'm saying that's what I would rather do than deal with fallout from things that, like, it's crazy kind of where some of this has gone, but part of it's because it's gotten so big, so you have to take the bad with the good. And again, it's a little bad and a lot of good. Just like there's a few bad posters, there's way more good ones. So again, in closing, putting a bow on that thing, we're about to go sit down and talk about it. We'll figure out what's best for the whole operation, and you guys are a big part of the operation. That's why we're even having a conversation about it. That's the only reason. But, that's it. So anyway, we'll do that, and it's ongoing.
Can we discuss
Bateman.
the Bateman situation that you wrote
Speaking
yesterday.
of ongoing.
So reports out of Virginia Tech that they're very interested in bringing him there. And it kind of seems like if that is the case, would be a win-win based on how I think Coach Elko's fingerprints are going to be on the defense next year. Just, you want to provide some analysis, some color to where we are with that?
Well, it's only a win-win if you go hire someone better or someone that's going to, you feel good about being here longer. Like if he's considering this offer that much, then you might only have him one more year anyway, because there might be a whole off season and fall of kind of lining something up. I don't blame Jay Bateman at all for listening to that. It's a DC job close to home for him, and it's a Power 4 program, and he would be the DC. I think he's not. I think Mike Elko is. I've made it pretty clear. He's taking a much more hands-on approach. He's taking over. For lack of a better phrase, I'm just saying he's taking over the defense. So I don't blame him if he looking at that. A&M's not going to pump in more money. He's getting paid quite a bit. There is a buyout situation. Will Virginia Tech pay that buyout? Will A&M come down off of that buyout? And because there's a money element at play here too, in terms of, if they'd have fired him and that buyout versus then you go hire the next guy. I know people think money doesn't matter, but it does, especially when you're trying to do so much for NIL. So to fire a guy for $1 million and then go hire another guy and, let's go get Jim Knowles. Well, that's $3.1 million, 3.3, and you're paying $1 million. So now you're at 4.3 for a D coordinator. There is a cap. There is a point where it's like, no, we can't do that. So that's an interesting dynamic to this if he voluntarily were to leave for Virginia Tech. So there might be some stuff going on behind the scenes today. I know as of last night, no one was really clear on what Jay was going to do. I'm not sure even Jay was, but so that's what I do know too is if Elko were to lose him, some people are wondering, okay, well, does that do you go hire a DC? No. I think he has made the decision
that he's
going to call the defense and run the defense. And so I think the replacement will be someone that is a front seven guy. He's got Hemphill as a secondary guy, and I think he would go replace him with another front seven guy. And I think he probably already has a short list in mind in case that happened. Because he had to have known that to tell that to your assistant 1 year in that assistant is going to go and start, hey, agent, find me something where I can be. I came here, I was going to be the DC. I'm really not anymore. So I think from that point, he's probably like, okay, there's a chance I'm going to lose him, so I need to have my short list ready to go. So I think it'll be something to follow the next couple of days. Like I say with these things, man, there are very few coaches that you lose that don't offer you an opportunity to upgrade. There are some over the years. There's been, but it's a shorter list and you could find worse than Jay Bateman in terms of he's a good linebackers coach. He does a good job with the front seven and the run. That's his specialty. But you can go get better. If you have the chance to get better, you can get better, whether it's by resume, whether it's something that excites the fans more, or whether it's just something that you feel like this is the defensive product I want to put on the field next year. So if I go get this guy along with Hemphill and the guys that are staying, I'll feel really good about that staff, and I'll feel a lot better than in hindsight what I was doing defensively a season ago. That's the opportunity in front of Mike Elko. It's also the opportunity if Bateman stays, just adding Hemphill and kind of changing the structure. But no, the big question, and I don't want to bury the lead with that. The big question people have is, would he go hire a big name or high-powered DC? And I think my answer will be no. I absolutely don't expect that. I think, for all intents and purposes, Mike Elko is your head coach, D coordinator. Texas has an offensive coordinator. I think it's Kyle Flood. That's the OC. That ain't the OC.
It's Sark.
It's Steve Sarkisian. And we were wondering when he put together his first staff, if that was going to be the case this fall with Elko, and it wasn't. Now it is.
Billy, thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Do you have any other?
We can keep talking. I mean, maybe I'll have you back on the show later this week.
Oh, no. Somebody texted more Caroline, please.
I like that idea.
Caroline's busy, man.
She's a big dog.
Caroline knows more SEC stuff. Like
she could tell you the backup tight end.
Teams. Yeah. We do need an off-season Caroline segment. And I'm also fired up about next week's guest. When is this going to take place?
I believe it's Tuesday of next week at 9:35. Reoccurring guests for the remainder of the off-season and maybe even longer than that. And our good partners at Academy Sports and Outdoors help making it happen.
Tuesday at 9:30.
Yeah, that's the initial plan. It could change week to week because this guy is very busy and very much in demand.
So you're saying I'm going to start coming on Tuesday at 9:35 because he's also very sensitive.
Is he?
Oh yeah, we don't want to upset.
Oh, so you know who it is?
We don't want to upset the precious. No,
I like his shirts. Quality shirts.
You could very easily be describing multiple people.
Olin had a black shirt on today.
We've got another. Again, like there's a couple of them. And by the way, while we're doing all this, somebody suggested T-Bob.
I love that.
I said, well, maybe I'll not live radio.
TexAgs After Dark.
Because you never know where he's going to go. But then I would also want to pretend to him that it's live so we trick him.
Yeah.
So it doesn't go too far off the rails. But that was a great one. Like, not to, just push the Tom Hart thing off to the side, but like, while we're on the subject, you guys, like some of y'all have so many opinions about the guests you don't like. Come up with some ideas for ones you do. And hey, I hate to break it to you, but yeah, I mean, they might get, they might come on for a segment or two and get their lunch paid for. It'd be like they get enough to go, whatever town they're in, they get enough to go buy.
By the way, one name that pops up all the
Jersey
time
Mike's.
is SEC Mike, who, by the way, during football season, we do have him on weekly, right?
Yeah.
So, and he's a guy that can come on anytime we want. There's a lot of names that people like, and we listen to them. Some of it is scheduling because of a morning show. Some folks are not as flexible in the morning. But look.
What I don't want to get into is where every time somebody's not liked, there's just a wave of like, let's make a movement and get this person kicked off. This is not what's going on here. I get it's a very visceral reaction to something that was real. But I don't want to go there. And I think you guys understand that and the negativity that comes with that. And it would be like a constant negativity. But I also think you've heard guests come on once, twice, 3 times, whatever. If some of them you like, let's try to get them on. If there are some that aren't on across sports, across the SEC that you want to see more of, let's do that. What I would love to do one day is hire one of these people in more of a like contract capacity. Because it'd be hard to get one full time, but like somebody that is either between, like I want someone on the SEC level that can come and every week and several different pieces of content a week, especially throughout the season, and just be on kind of a schedule where they can be an actual paid contract
contributor,
content provider covering the SEC. If you think of anybody that might do that, because again, you got to think of some people that maybe were once covering the SEC or people that are not as bogged down as some of the biggest names, people on the upswing.
Yeah.
Some people have mentioned Shoemate from SEC Unfiltered.
He's great. I like him a lot.
He does a good job, and he worked here, I think, under Sumlin.
He did. Yeah, he did. He's awesome.
Anyway,
I like him a lot.
Just give suggestions. Start a thread. That would be productive and helpful and beneficial.
Yeah.
For the show. For those,
for us.
For those
for
of
America.
you that don't post about not listening, which is fine. You can do that too. But.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. What? Billy, thanks for taking my call at 7:50 in the morning.
Yeah, I
won't do it again.
No,
for me, it was like Sunday, it was the afternoon
on a Sunday, and I was in Austin the night before, and I may or may not have come home and watched a lot of. I did not watch SEC Now, like I like to do after Aggie wins.
No, I didn't watch it either.
No offense to Darian, the crew, Pat, but I did watch several episodes Saturday night of I was binging Mayor of Kingstown, which
I got to catch up on that show.
I was so late to the party on. So, yeah, it was a tough. I was like, I saw that, and I was like, man, I'll go back to sleep, call you whenever. But then I thought about you, and I thought about what the boards were looking like, when I went to bed, and I was like, man, there's no reason for Nuño to be stressing on a Sunday.
Well, you know me. I either am completely detached, or I am absorbed by the energy in the boards.
I knew that was like,
it drains, buddy. It does. But it is what we signed up for.
I knew it was. Well, it sucks. People tell me all the time. They're like, man, I don't know. This one of two things. Like, it's either post on the board or text like that, or on Twitter, that I'm just the world's biggest piece of shit and everyone here sucks, or it's, man, I don't know how you deal with it. And I go, oh man, you don't get to experience what I do from the TexAgs family, from the Aggie fan base. Like, I can deal with all this, and whether when the group's in the right, when they're in the wrong, it's like I can deal with all that because y'all don't understand how much the good outweighs the bad. Not just with the job, but just walking around and getting to represent both TexAgs and the fans. It's fun. It's never. Some days of work are better than others, but it is never something that I would ever complain about, to the point where people say, I don't know how you deal with it. I'm like, trust me, it's the good outweighs the bad by a millionfold. And I hope that's the same way with you.
It depends on the day. To be honest, it depends on the day.
Dude, let me tell you something. I always say this, there are people that would trade
1,000%
for what they do, and it's a very high percentage.
It
is one thing I will say to people. I'm like, it does to read in writing like personal attacks that are invalid. To read people go so far down a road that they're wrong about a process, about your character, about what you've said versus what you didn't say, versus all those things. And to see that, and this is, I think, is where you, like, every day of your life, to see that, it's like, it jades you a little bit. It jades you towards people. It doesn't jade me towards Aggies.
No.
It jades you, though, towards like 2025 society.
Yeah.
It's why people like, social media. It is like crazy what it has turned.
I will say this:
doing.
the group on YouTube and on TexAgs chat are typically some of the nicest human beings in the world, and they have a great recommendation. I talked to you about the color of shirt of our potential weekly guest who could be a commissioner of something. People are suggesting I bring back the yellow shirt.
You bring back the yellow shirt. Why do they want you to bring back the yellow shirt?
Remember how ridiculous that yellow shirt was?
Yeah, but why do they want it back?
Just because that particular guest might wear a certain type of shirt every day. Never mind. I'm going to leave it there.
Just give me a better hint. Start that again. I don't want to not know now that we've gone down that road.
The potential guest, now I feel weird. The potential guest on the show is known for the kind of shirt that he wears on his show. Are you aware of this?
Oh, you're talking about the actual... Dude, you've given it away.
I haven't told
17 times.
I haven't said is Rosh rate.
So, yeah, so they're saying you should match that energy.
And bring the yellow.
Do it.
The oversized yellow V-neck that everybody in America,
the most hideous shirt a radio host has
including
ever
my
worn.
family, are like, dude, you can't wear that again. But why'd you buy it for me, family?
It is. I've seen you wear that in the gym. It is the most hideous shirt. The only person that could come on the show as a guest that they would have that shirt on and get away with it is either
Josh Pate,
Hulk Hogan, or Big Bird. Those two could wear it.
He would look naked if he's wearing it, Big Bird.
You can't pull it off. Hulk Hogan and Big Bird could. But yeah, I think that would be shtick.
I might do that when he's on. I might.
Why not lean into it?
Yeah.
And just see how long it takes for him to notice?
Or I might short sleeve hoodie just for you.
You need to wear You need to wear the yellow shirt until there's a comment from him about it.
Okay.
Like if it's one show, if it's 7 shows,
I better remember. Somebody remind me on Monday. All right. I got a manager's meeting. I'm sure we're going to talk about stuff that we talked about today.
I'm going to eat with Seth.
Oh, thanks for the input. See you next time.